A very good afternoon, everybody. Today is the first day of our presentation session. Semester 2 students are making their presentations. In the morning, we had a group of 17 students, and now in this afternoon slot, we have another 16 students making their presentations. Uh, in this group, we will have these topics being presented by these students. Let me read out the list of the presenters and their topics. We will start with Nidhi's presentation on myth, cycles of history, and cultural nationalism, a contemplative study of national identity in selected poems of W.B. Yeats and Rabindranath Tagore. Siddharth N. Chauhan will make a presentation on when the center cannot hold, cultural fragmentation and the crisis of meaning in modernist literature. It will be followed by Mittal's presentation on mocking biography, the failure of truth in Orlando. Grishma's will be on the politics of naming and deception in Orlando. Priya's will be on the unreal city, urban isolation and psychological alienation in the Westland and contemporary metropolises. Radhika's will be on from thunder to Dharma, reimagining Upanishadic and Gita ethics in the Westland. Victor's password. After Radhika, Sanjay's will be on modernist anxiety and media-driven reality from T.S. Eliot's cultural critique to the cinematic satire of the Bollywood film PK. Krutis will be on the green light in the Emerald Estate, commodity, fetishism, and the parasitic Gothic in the Great Gatsby and Subaltern. You have all selected very high sounding and heavily lauded topics. Yeah, so ChatGPT has helped you a lot, but let us see if you are able to justify this heavily lauded topics or not. Mansis will be on glittering wealth and the loneliness within. A modernist critique of materialism and the human cost of consumer culture in the Great Gatsby. Mulraj will be on romantic illusions, the pursuit of happiness and the crisis of values in the Great Gatsby, a Nietzschean reading. Priyanka's will be on behind the glitter, what Gatsby's parties do not reveal. Sagar will make a presentation on the syntax of disenchantment, lyricism, decay, and the American Westland in The Great Gatsby. Sandhya will make it on speculative identities, Bourdieu's forms of capital, and the venture labor of self-fashioning in The Great Gatsby and the 21st century creator economy. Siddharth G. Chauhan will make it on the will to power and the false prophet, a Nietzschean critique of the American dream in The Great Gatsby. Siddhibaz will be on the new women and the traditional trap in The Great Gatsby. And finally, Vanita's presentation on the illusion of wealth from Gatsby's parties to social media culture. Okay? So let us start with the first one. Nidhi, you can start your presentation. Okay?
Hello everyone, myself Nidhi Pandya. Today's my topic of presentation of 106 paper number is Myth, Cycles of History and the Cultural Nationalism, a comparative study of national identity in selected poems of W.B. Yeats and the Rabindranath Tagore. These are my academic and presentation details. These are table of contents. Here is my research question. How do W.B. Yeats and the Rabindranath Tagore employ the myths and the historical cycles to construct, celebrate, and critique the cultural nationalism while forging a distinct national identity in their selected poems? My hypothesis is both poets use mythic imagery and the cyclical visions of history to promote a cosmopolitan cultural nationalism that values the spiritual unity and the hybrid identity over the aggressive political division. Yeats revives Irish myths for the cultural and the spiritual rebirth, while Tagore critiques narrow nationalism and envisions India as a moral pilgrimage of unity and universal humanity. Their poetry demonstrates that literature can awake authentic national consciousness without hatred or exclusion. This is the timeline of the W.B. Yeats and Rabindranath Tagore from 1861 to 1941. Introduction. Yeats and Tagore met in 1920 and deeply respected. Both poets met and deeply respected each other's vision, despite writing from the opposite ends of the British Empire. Both used poetry to awaken the criticizing the narrowness of the politics. Their shared belief in a cosmopolitan form of nationalism that still challenges us today. This introduction sets the stage for the rich comparative journey. Yeats' use of myth and cycles of history. Yeats saw history moving in the widening gyres, each age collapsing into the next. He turned to the ancient myth and showed that Shelley to imagine the Ireland's rebirth. The great memory he described lets us to speak with the past, which is shown into the present. This mythical cycle is never purely political. It remains spiritually open to the larger human truths. Now, the second coming, the first poem of the W.B. Yeats, Apocalypse and the Historical Cycles. In the second coming, Yeats shows as an entire civilization spinning out of the control. The famous line about the center cannot hold captures the terror of the historical collapse. And yet, the poem also hints that rebirth through the myth. Reading it with the week's analysis of the great memory reveals Yeats' belief that even darkness can birth in a new spiritual truth. After that, second poem is Easter 1916, Myth of the Sacrifice and the National Awakening. Easter 1960 turns a political failure into a lasting myth. Yeats lists ordinary people into a suddenly become heroic. The refrain, "A terrible beauty is born," captures his mixed feeling. Throughout the poetry, he gives his rising eternal life. Here, Reagan shows that how Yeats used literature to shape the Irish identity without blindly showing the glorification of the violence. After that, sailing to the Byzantium, art, eternity, vision on the nation, myth, and the history. Here, Tagore imagined India as a moral and spiritual force, never a fighting machine. He drew on an ancient myth to show history moving toward the unity. Now, Quam explained here that how the Tagore saw the nationalistic as a dangerous epidemic. Instead of hatred, he offered through the pilgrimage and the universal sympathy. His poem still challenges that narrow patriotism today also. After that, where the mind is without fear, ideal national awakening. Tagore's most famous prayers ask for the nation where minds are fearless and knowledge flows freely. Here he rejects the narrow domestic walls that divide the people. The poem is both national and the universal. It shows that cultural nationalism as an inner freedom first. Even today, the lines feels like blueprint of the tolerant societies. After that, the Bharat Tirth, India is a sacred pilgrimage. In Bharat Tirth, Tagore calls India a sacred pilgrimage for every race and the faith. He welcomes Aryan and non-Aryan alike. His history envisions the enriched culture. This mythic imagery of the unity and the contrasts sharply with the violent nationalism. Now, the poem offers a beautiful model of the inclusive identity. After that, the sunset of the century, a critique of nationalistic violence. Tagore here shows that the sunset of the century, on which was written on the New Year's Eve on 1899, he paints the nationalism as a monster devouring the everything. The blood-red clouds and the clashing steels are terrifying here. And QM calls this Tagore's strongest attack on the epidemic of the devil that nationalist spreads. After that, the comparative cycles of the history in Yeats and Tagore. Here I have shown that Yeats and Tagore both picture history as a cycles rather than a straight progress. Yeats watches civilization spin apart, Tagore sees the century end in a blood. Yet both poets find hope in renewal. This cycles goes on. This cycles warn against the pride and violence that is going to keep on. This shade pattern make their national ideas and visions feel timeless and deeply relevant. After that, comparative of the myth in constructing the national identity, which shows the aspect of myth use against colonialism, trauma, and the renewal type of the nationalism, overall role of the myth, where WB says myth as used Celtic and the classical myth restore the Irish identity, where Rabindranath Tagore says the pilgrim and the universal myth unify the India. After that, against the colonialism, W.B. Yeats explained that resist the cultural and erasure and the mimicry, while the Rabindranath Tagore explains it promotes the unity and the synthesis. Trauma here shows the turns historical failure into the renewal, while the Rabindranath Tagore transforms suffering into moral awakening. Here, W.B. Yeats showed the type of nationalism as a culture and the identity base, where the Rabindranath Tagore shows it cultural, universal, and inclusive. And after that, W.B. Yeats finally shows the overall role of myth is it rebuilds the identity, and Rabindranath Tagore says the unifies diversity while the staying open. After that, Yeats' cultural nationalism and the literature and the identity. Yeats strongly believed that the great literature and the great nationality go together. He worked tirelessly in the Irish literary revival. Regan explained that the Yeats nationalism was complex because of his Protestant roots, and he's used myth to unite the people rather than the slogan. After that, Tagore's critique on the aggressive nationalism. Tagore calls the nationalism as a moral disease that feeds on the greed. QM shows here how the fiercely he opposed its violence. Cosmopolitan nationalism, hybrid identity in the both poem. William coins here the term cosmopolitan nationalism for the Yeats and Tagore. They love their countries deeply yet refuse to narrow the heart trade. Their hybrid identity resists the colonial mimicry. After that, post-colonial perspective. Post-colonial critics like Said and Regan sees the Yeats as a decolonizing artist. Tagore too used the literature to free the Indian minds. Electon here shows the collection of how deeply nationalism and both colonialism are linked. Both poets starts with the cultural self-confidence. My hypothesis is here justified as the analysis of the selected poem fully justified the hypothesis. Both Yeats and Tagore uses myths and historical cycles to promote the cosmopolitan culture nationalism with a spiritual rooted yet inclusive and the open to the world. Instead of aggressive division, their poetry fosters the hybrid nation identity that honor culture's heritage while embracing the universal values. Yeats and Rabindranath Tagore here shows that the literature can awake the authentic national consciousness without hatred or inclusion that remains highly relevant in today's age. Lessons for today that both poets strongly warn that aggressive nationalism driven by the violence can never be fully help the nation. In contrast, they advocate the inclusive form of the cultural pride that welcomes the diversity and encourages the meaningful East and West dialogue, while their use of myth and cyclical history suggests that humanity is doomed to repeat its failure unless it learns deeper spiritual and moral lessons. Thus, literature becomes a powerful medium to healing collective wounds without creating new cycles of hatred. Dear conclusion. W.B. Yeats and Rabindranath Tagore transform a myth and historical cycles into profound instrument for showing the cosmopolitan cultural nationalism, shaping a vision rooted in national identity and that firmly resist the hatred, violence, and exploitation. These are my learning outcomes. I have learned from that they employ the myths and the historical cycles to construct, celebrate, and critique cultural nationalism. I developed a critical thinking and creative about how to see the nationalism and cosmopolitan nationalism. This is the infographic which shows my summary of my full presentation. These are references. Thank you, everyone. Any questions? Um, Nidhi, my question is that how do yet violent cycles of history compared to modern global crises such as war and political instability? In W.B. Yeats and from his vision, here into the second coming, he shows the symbol of the widening gyres, which shows and his theory explained that the society and everything falls apart and civilization and war happens. But always, whenever there is a collapse, there is a renewal also. That shows that the real violent cycles are the of histories which compares the modern global crisis, that even if there is a war, there will be a renewal. And if we see the visions of the Tagore, then it will be from the he will say that it is a moral thinking of the cultural and the cosmopolitan nationalism. He will avoid it through the moral thinking and from the show it as a human responsibility. That is my answer.
So my question is: in the age of globalization and digital culture, is myth still relevant in shaping national identity?
Yes, yes, the myths are still relevant because it shows that its form has been changed. Myths are still relevant and has been read, but the form of myth has been taken by the social media and the social platforms, which shows the cruelty of the war and everything. Here, Yeats could be emphasizing upon that how the new media and myth can build the identity, national identity. While if it was Tagore who will be answering, then it will be uses it to the promote the unity, showing that the myths can either unite the people and and it can create a division depending on our how it is used. So the it can be showed that myth can help us into relevant time also, but through the new form social media and the every social platforms. Thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon, learners. Today I am going to present on the when the center cannot hold cultural fragmentation and the crisis of meaning in modernist literature. Um, Here is my academic details and a personal presentation details. Here is the table of content. Here is the prologue. When heaven fell silent. The devastation of a World War I created a profound cultural crisis in the early 20th century. Weakening faith in religious morality and social progress, critics describe this period as an age of anxiety and cultural fragmentation. Modernist writers responded to this crisis by experimenting with new literary forms that reflected the instability of modern life. Works such as The Wasteland and The Second Coming vividly portrayed the spiritual and cultural disintegration of a modern civilization. Here is my research question and hypothesis. What is my research question? Is that how do modernist writers represent the crisis of a cultural meaning and identity in the early 20th century through a fragmentation, symbolism, and narrative experiment? My hypothesis, which show how my presentation was going, was that shows the how modernist literature reflects the collapse of a traditional culture structure after World War I. Portraying a fragmented society in which writers employ symbolism, mythical structure, and the experimental narrative techniques to express a spiritual emptiness and the search of an identity. The first slides that show the crisis of a modern civilization, ashes of a faith and fragments of a meaning. Modernism emerged from a several interconnected crises like a social instability after the First World War I, the decline of a religious authority. There were no any kind of a belief in a religious authority and the rapid industrial and technological change. The poem reflects the cultural disillusionment and a moral decay of a 20th century through this fragmented structure and symbolic imagery. This intellectual climate was influenced by thinkers such as Friedrich Nietzsche, a critique of a religious certainty. Sigmund Freud, he talked about the divide human psyche, and the Karl Marx, who shows the social critique of a capitalist modernity. Eliot also portrays the fragmentation and spiritual emptiness of a modern civilization after First World War I. A Desert of a Voice, a spiritual ruin in the Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. The text, The Wasteland. The poem is structured as the fragmented collage of a voice, various mythical structures, and the cultural references reflecting the breakdown of a coherent meaning in a modern society. According to Eliot's poems illustrate the fragmentation and the spiritual desolation of a modern civilization in the aftermath of World War I. The poem presents a landscape of a cultural desolation that symbolizes the moral and spiritual collapse of a Western civilization. That show how Western civilization was collapsed by their spiritual emptiness and other meanings. The imagery of a drought, sterility, and ruins symbolize the spiritual exhaustion of a Western civilization. Myth against the chaos, cultural memory and the mythic method, Eliot. That shows Eliot attempts to restore cultural meaning through what critics call a mythical method. A recent study on Eliot's use of myths argued that the classical mythological structure provide a symbolic framework that connects fragmented modern experience with the ancient cultural tradition. Through figures such as a Tiresias and a Fisher King, Eliot creates a dialogue between past and present that show how the Eliot used the past character to show the today's reality. When the Falcon Lost the Falconer, apocalyptic vision in The Second Coming by William Butler is it represents the modern civilization as entering a phase of historical collapse. The winding gear symbolizes the loss of control in a historical process. The people of this age cannot follow the process of a historical. The winding gear is the Yeats poem symbolizes the collapse of a social and spiritual order in a modern civilization. The modern civilization can't follow the social and spiritual order of the history. Another poem on being asked for a war. Poem reveals Yeats' refusal to glorify war, emphasizing the ethical responsibility of a poetry during time of a suffering. Yeats can't want to be a propagandist poet of this time. He can't want to follow the structure of the poet, write for a political purpose. A Life Beyond Time, Identity, Gender, and a Transformation in Orlando by Virginia Woolf. Virginia Woolf challenged the traditional notions of identity through experimental narrative techniques. The protagonist Orlando lives for centuries and changed gender, illustrating the fluidity of identity and the instability of the historical narratives. Modernist experimentation with time and consciousness demonstrate the complexity of a human identity in modern society. How the people change their identity by the time that show by the Virginia Woolf. Woolf challenges the conventional idea of a gender and historical identity through Orlando's transformation across century. Orlando also transferred from men to women. That shows how women are portrayed in this society. Dreams Built on a Dust, Illusion and Capitalist Desire in The Great Gatsby by F. Fitzgerald. In this text, Great Gatsby, F. Fitzgerald portrays J. Gatsby as a symbolic figure whom dreams of wealth and love represent the illusion of an American dream. Gatsby's enormous fortune, extravagant lifestyle demonstrate how capitalist ambition replaces authentic emotional and moral values in modern society. Gatsby, why want to be a rich man for only Daisy's love? For not showing the people what purpose behind the wealthy. According to Pearson, Gatsby became a false prophet of an American dream, pursuing a vision of a success that ultimately proves unattainable and destructive. The novel therefore exposed the moral emptiness and the social inequality hidden beneath and the glamorous surface of the jazzes. Fitzgerald ultimately exposed the American dream as a fragile illusion corrupted by a capitalist desire and destined to collapse into a disillusionment. American dream totally corrupted by the people who have already money and class and the lower class people who followed their steps to become a rich. World in a Fragment's comparative vision of a modernist crisis that shows, despite a radical stylistic difference, a unified modernist project emerged, mapping culture disintegration to grow new pathways for a meaning. Here is my main text, and the core crisis depicted literary strategy and symbolic anchor were shown here. Together, these modernist texts reveal a fragmented world in which a traditional structure of a meaning collapse, leaving individual to confront uncertainty, disillusionment, and the cultural crisis. Conclusion: the work examined in this presentation collectively reveal how modernist literature respond to the profound cultural crisis that followed World War I in the Westland. T.S. Eliot represent the spiritual desolation and fragmentation of a modern civilization through a disjoint poetic structure. Similarly, Virginia Woolf's Orlando challenged fixed notion of identify the gender reflecting the instability of a modern subjectivity. In also a Great Gatsby, illusion and a moral emptiness behind the American dream, revealing how capitalist desire distort human aspiration. And also where a traditional structure of a order collapse, symbolizing the uncertainty of the modern age. Taken together, this text demonstrates the modernist literature does not merely portray fragmentation, but critically interrogates the cultural, moral, and existential anxiety of the 20th century. That's why I combine the four texts and make my presentation. Here is my justification of a research question and hypothesis. My research question was justified by the selected modernist text, the Westland, Orlando, the Great Gatsby, and the Second Coming reflect this crisis through themes of a spiritual desolation, unstable identity, and the collapse of cultural values. Both the research question and hypothesis are justified because they enable a comparative analysis of how major modernist writers represent the crisis of a meaning and the fragmentation of a modern civilization through innovative literary forms and themes. Here is my learning outcomes. Here are the references. Thank you. And now the question are.
My question is that how does the Gatsby's represent modernist anxiety?
Okay. My presentation also give the answer of this question that shows the whole plot of narrated by Fitzgerald shows the representation of a modernist anxiety. That shows how character of a Gatsby from starting to ending follow the crisis followed by the people, by the society, and that shows the emptiness of emotions and the fragmented language of the people on that on this time. Another question.
What ways does F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby critique the illusions of the American dream?
Okay, sorry, I'll give the wrong answer. First question. The answer of this question is that Great Gatsby is the false dream that show the spiritual emptiness and the fragmented language used by the Great Gatsby in the by the F. Fitzgerald. Thank you.
Good afternoon, friends. My name is HELAIYA. Today, I am going to tell you something about on mocking biography, the failure of truth in Orlando, a biography. This is my academic information. This is table of contents. My research question is, how does Virginia Woolf's Orlando, a biography, challenge the convention of a traditional biography? And in what ways does it demonstrate that life writing is a subjective, constructed, and interpretive narrative rather than an objective recounting of facts? Hypothesis. Virginia Woolf's Orlando, a biography, demonstrates that biography is inherently subjective and socially constructed, using narrative experimentation, parody, and genre blurring to reveal that life writing is not a neutral recounting of facts, but a collaborative, imaginative, and culturally mediated interpretation of identity. Introduction. Virginia Woolf's Orlando, a biography, radically challenges the convention of traditional biography, blending fiction, satire, and historical commentary to interrogate the notion of objective truth in life writing. Unlike conventional biographies, which claim to faithfully represent a person's life, Orlando destabilizes factual accuracy through narrative devices such as time leaps, gender transformation, and fantastical elements. Woolf positions the reader as an active participant, emphasizing that meaning is co constructed and that identity itself is fluid, shaped by culture, social, and literary context. By mixing genres and parodying established norms, the text anticipates postmodern skepticism about the possibility of a single authoritative truth, revealing biography as both imaginative and collaborative. Failure of truth in biography, destabilizing factual truth. Woolf challenges the notion of objective truth through narrative devices like time leaps, Orlando's gender transformation, and deliberate gaps in the story. Constructed, not discovered. The biography emphasized that life writing is a constructed narrative, showing the impossibility of fully capturing a person's life through facts alone. Limits of traditional biography, humor, satire, and imaginative play reveal that conventional biography cannot fully present inner life, thoughts, or evolving identity. Fluid and fluid identity, and chronology. Orlando's evolving personality and 400 years lifespan illustrate that chronological or factual reporting is insufficient to convey the self. Mocking biography, parody. Parody of traditional biography. Orlando exaggerates lifespan, incorporates gender shifts, and includes playful literary commentary to parody conventional life writing. Satirical tone and critique. Woolf uses satire and humor to expose the artificiality of biography, critiquing Victorian and early 20th century biographical conventions. Collaborative and playful narrative. The text invites reader participation, making biography a collaborative, imaginative exercise rather than a authoritative account. Genre blurring and imaginative play. By blending fiction and fact, Woolf shows that biography is not strictly factual but a site for imaginative experimentation, questioning the claim to objectivity. Reader as co creator and narrative instability. First is active reader participation. Woolf positions readers as co creator of meaning, emphasizing that they are not passive recipients of narrative gaps, and abrupt shifts. The text includes ellipses, sudden time leaps, and unresolved events, compelling readers to actively interpret and fill in narrative gaps. Blurring author and reader boundaries by making readers responsible for meaning making. Woolf diminishes the distinction between author, narrator, and audience, showing biography as a collaborative and interpretive act. Subjectivity of biography. These techniques highlight that life writing is constructed and subjective, not an objective or a fixed account. Genre blurring and postmodern skepticism. Mixing of genres. Woolf blends biography, fiction, and essayistic commentary, destabilizing traditional genre expectation. Constructed truth. The instability of genre demonstrates that biographical truth is constructed, not objectively discovered. Postmodern skepticism. Orlando anticipates postmodern theory by showing that truth is interpretive and multiple rather than fixed or universal. Cultural and social mediation. The biography reflects historical, social, and commercial pressures, indicating that life writing is shaped by external context, not merely the subject's reality. Cultural and historical construction of biography. Marketing and literary influence. Biography is shaped by market forces, literary professionalism, and publishing pressures, not just the subject's life. Mediated truth. Woolf demonstrates that truth is life writing is mediated by cultural, social, and economical context rather than purely factual. Social and cultural construction. Orlando critiques traditional biography as specially and culturally constructed, revealing that life writing reflects norm and expectation of its time. Postmodern insight. The text reinforces postmodern ideas of subjectivity, showing that narrative culture and commerce together shape the portrayal of identity. This is the infograph of my Wool PPT. Conclusion. Orlando demonstrates that biography is not a neutral or objective recounting of fact but a constructed narrative, influenced by genre, historical context, and the interpretive role of the reader. Through parody, satire, genre blurring, and imaginative storytelling, Woolf critiques the limitation of traditional life writing, exposing its inability to fully capture inner life, identity, or evolving personality. Uh, Woolf transforms biography into a dynamic site of narrative play, underscoring the postmodern insight that all accounts of life are interpretive construction rather than fixed realities. These are the references. Thank you. Now questions are welcome. Hello. My Mittal, my question is, why is Virginia Woolf's work considered a mocking biography?
Virginia Woolf parodies biography through exaggeration, fantasy, and unreliable narrator. This mocks the idea that biographies can be fully factual and objective.
So my question is that why Virginia Woolf was considered as a mocking biography, and also I want to add in this question is that why Virginia Woolf choose that form to make their work.
Biography shows that history is selective and constructed. Its exaggerated timelines and impossible events reveal that historical truth is shaped by perspective and power. This mocks idea of biography. This is also mocks biographies can be fully factual and objective. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, the topic of presentation which I am going to present is the politics of naming and description in Orlando. These are my academic and presentation details, the table of contents, and the research question is, how does Woolf's manipulation of naming practices anticipate contemporary debates on the gender-neutral language and identity politics? So the hypothesis is the Orlando anticipates contemporary linguistic concerns about inclusivity and self-identification by presenting naming and description as a fluid rather than a fixed way. And through Orlando's gender transformation, Woolf is exposing how pronouns, titles, and the descriptive labels are shifting according to the societal norms rather than their inner identity. And the ironic biographical narrator further reveals that naming is an act of power which is imposing meaning on the self, and by destabilizing conventional gendered language, Woolf challenges rigid linguistic categories and foreshadows the modern debates on inclusive language, chosen names, and the right of individuals to define their own identities through language. So the introduction where I am going to talk about how Orlando is subverting the conventions of traditional biography by exposing the ideological authority behind naming and description, which is prominently seen in Woolf's works Orlando. And critics note that Woolf's mock biographical form is allowing her to foreground how identity is produced through language rather than a discovered essence. And protagonist longevity and gender transformation is also rendering the naming being unstable, revealing the language as historical contingent and politically charged. And from the outset, Woolf is establishing that the act of describing a life is inseparable from power, classification, and exclusion. The language, discourse, and identity formation in Orlando. So the identity is constructed through language rather than originating as an essential inner truth. And this mock biographical form is exposing how discourse claims authority to define and legitimize identity. And the persistence of the name Orlando across gendered and historical shift is destabilizing the amused link between name and fixed identity. So the title, pronouns, and the descriptions are operating historically and are regulating coherence and intangibility. So identity here emerges as a discursively produced existing only through the acts of naming and narrative authorization. So Wolf is reorienting identity from ontology. Ontology is the study of metaphysics. So here we can see fragmented narrative, and as a discourse, it is foregrounding the politics which are inherent in the linguistic representation. So gender, pronouns, and referential instability, where the sex change of Orlando is foregrounding the pronouns as social and ideological rather than neutral grammatical forms. And this continued use of the same proper name across genders destabilizes the assumed coherence between name, body, and gendered identity. So this referential instability is exposing gender as a sustained norms rather than repeated linguistic recognition than biologically fixity. And critics also noted that habitual naming and pronoun usage are functioning to normalize gender within this discourse, especially if looking through the lens of Orlando. And pronouns here are operating as regulatory tools, conferring or withholding social intangibility and legitimacy. And also, we can consider Orlando as the queer text, the first ever queer text which was written by a female. Many critics argue that as well. And then in Orlando, the description of the language is attached to the body shifts which are marked after Orlando's transformation, revealing how gender determines modes of representation. And the masculine embodiment is described through action, movement, and the autonomy. And the feminine embodiment is framed through appearance, decorum, and moral scrutiny. And Woolf is here exposing the description as a regulatory discourse that disciplines the body according to the socially sanctioned gender norms. And critics observe that descriptive excess and irony are revealing that these representations are not neutral, but they are ideologically charged. And the body is becoming a symbol of a textual surface upon which power, gender, expectations, and social control are linguistically inscribed. The narrative authority and the biographical naming. And here the narrator claims that epistemic authority is to record, classify, and stabilize Orlando's life, which echoes the institutional discourses such as history, law, and archival biography. And Woolf exaggerates this authority through ironic intrusions, footnote-like commentary and contradictions, and exposing the biography as a constructed and ideological inflected genre rather than an objective record. And critically, if observed, then this mock biographer is functioning as a figure of patriarchal and archival power, exercising control through acts of naming, categorization, and historical ordering. And here, naming is becoming a site of tension between Orlando's also shows how the narrative authority and biographical naming during that time when Orlando was being written reflects the identity crisis. And to conclude, I would say that the manipulation of naming and description which Woolf is presenting in her work reveals language as a political instrument that regulates identity. And by destabilizing names, pronouns, and descriptive norms, Orlando challenges essentialist models of gender and selfhood. And criticism coherently here positions the novel as a precursor to contemporary debates on linguistic inclusivity and self-identification. So Orlando thus here remains a foundational text for understanding how language produces limits and potentially liberates identity. I have divided the presentation regarding the groups section covered and the focus area of my presentation and how critical of each group is being divided. The justification of the research question and hypothesis that it is justified by the need to reassess Orlando from my perspective in relation to contemporary linguistic debates on gender neutral language and identity politics as the society is being changed, and also the relevance might change. And Woolf's treatment of gender fluidity has received a sustained critical attention, and the specific role of naming practices like names, pronouns, titles, and descriptive labels are used as mechanisms of linguistic power and has not been examined with sufficient focus. And the question here foregrounds naming as a discursive act, and thereby it is shifting critical attention from representation to language itself as a site of identity formation and regulation. So hypotheses are justified because they emerge directly from Woolf's narrative strategies in Orlando and Novel's retention of Orlando's proper name across gender transformation, the instability of pronouns, and the ironical biographical voice collectively demonstrate that naming and description are socially contingent rather than reflections of an essential self. So these strategies closely anticipate contemporary concerns by surrounding inclusive language, chosen names, and the right of self-identification. So by framing Woolf's linguistic experimentation as a precursor to present-day identity politics, these hypotheses are providing a theoretically grounded and textually verifiable framework that validates both the relevance and originality of the research inquiry. The learning outcomes, I understood the central idea of politics in naming and description as a critical approach to reading Orlando before presenting my presentation. And I learned how naming functions beyond mere identification, carrying ideological, cultural, and social implications within the text. I became aware of the significance of description as a narrative strategy, how it shapes meaning and interpretation in Orlando, especially if read through the contemporary lens. And also I developed an understanding of how literary texts can reflect power relations through language, particularly through the acts of naming and representation. And I recognize Orlando as a text that invites critical engagement within identity formation through language. Even during the contemporary times, one can revise the work and have a critical framework. And this improved my ability to frame a literary topic around thematic and conceptual analysis rather than a simple plot summary. These are my references. Thank you. If anyone would like to have any question, then feel free to ask.
So throughout your presentation, I want to ask that can online identity be seen as an extension of Woolf's idea that identity is constructed through the language?
Yes, through partial means, I can say that it is an extension that identity is considered through language. If we take the contemporary lens into consideration, then nowadays with the rise of social media and how people are showing their dual identity on social media, they are totally different, and in the real personality, they might totally be different. And how the usage of pronouns like she, her, they, them, these are some pronouns which are used in Instagram and Facebook. Also now avatars are being made, so people are using relevant avatars according to their description to imply on what they are feeling. Instead of using emojis, now they are diverting towards GIFs or towards avatars. So it can be considered as a description of extension of Woolf's idea, but also in a fragmented lens. Anyone else? Yes, indeed, it would have been written differently if it was produced in the 21st century, as 21st century is about... Oh, sorry.
How would Orlando be written differently if it were produced in the 21st century?
So yeah, according to my perception, if it was produced in the 21st century, then it would have changed dynamic, as it would have been seen more through a trans or queer text. And also according to the contemporary times of digitalization, there are usernames which are specifically designed or designated for some purpose, like for writing or for their creativity or for showing their art. And also this influencer culture also we can see that if Orlando was present in the today's time, then the character of Orlando might be an influencer who is influencing the society, and also might be participating in the rallies of queer rights or the LGBTQ community. So indeed, yes, if it was written differently, then 21st century Orlando would be different. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself Priya Rathod, and today my presentation topic is the unreal city, urban isolation, and psychological alienation in the Westland and contemporary metropolises. These are my academic details and presentation details. This is table of contents. So my research question is that how does Eliot's construction of the city as an unreal space of psychic fragmentation in the Westland illuminate the structural conditions of urban alienation in the contemporary metropolises? In the Westland, T.S. Eliot constructs the modern city as a space of psychological and spiritual disintegration, where urban life produces anonymity, fragmentation, and emotional isolation through images of anonymous crowds, deathly urban landscape, and formality fragmented poetic structures. The poem portrays the metropolises as the site where individual identity dissolves within the mass. Eliot presents the city not merely as a physical environment but as a psychogeographical landscape reflecting the inner collapse of modern consciousness. Consequently, the poem diagnoses the alienating conditions of metropolitan life in a way that extend beyond its historical context, suggesting that the unreal city remains recurring structural features of modern urban experience. So, the introduction in the Westland, Eliot develops a modernist representation of the city as a landscape of cultural collapse. London appears as a unreal city reflecting the disillusionment of post-World War I society. The poem's fragmented structures mirrors the psychological confusion of metropolitan life, where individuals experience alienation despite living within the crowded urban environment. Close reading: Urban Alienation and Cultural Fragmentation in the Westland. A close reading reveals how Eliot represents urban alienation. The crowd crossing London Bridge resembles the souls in Dante's underworld, symbolizing spiritual emptiness. Domestic scenes in a game of chess shows how emotional anxiety, while the polluted the river Thames in the fire sermon reflects a cultural decay. And these images together depict modern urban life as a fragmented and spiritually exhausted. This table represents this table compares Eliot's London with the contemporary global metropolises. Both reveal conditions of anonymity, fragmentation, and psychological isolation. While Eliot's commuters move mechanically across the London Bridge, modern city dwellers often remain absorbed in digital technologies. Despite technological change, the core experience of urban alienation described by Eliot remains highly relevant today. The city as a projective psychological landscape. Eliot transforms the city into a psychological landscape where urban space reflects inner emotional states. Images such as the brown fog of a winter symbolizes spiritual exhaustion. The figures of terraces represent the detached observer of urban life, suggesting that the modern individuals often become spectators of their own alienated existence within the metropolises. The alienated crowd and the dissolution of selfhood. The crowd in Burial of the Dead represent the poem's most powerful image of metropolitan alienation. Eliot here describes the commuters crossing London Bridge like the souls in Dante's underworld. These imageries suggest that urban life produces anonymity and depersonalization, where individuals lost their identity and the vast impersonal mass of the modern city. Temporal continuity across the modern metropolises. Eliot's diagnosis of alienation is not limited to historical context of 1922. Instead, it reflects a structural condition of modern urban life, industrial organization, and economic competition. And metropolitan density continue to produce fragmentation and social disconnection. Therefore, the poem's insight remain relevant for understanding contemporary metropolitan experiences. The core concept, the unreal city and its mechanism. The unreal city represents here metropolises that appear active and vibrant but lacks genuine spiritual meaning. Human interactions become mechanical and routine. As shown is the scene like the typist episode, the poems fragmented from the itself mirrors the sensory overload and disorientation of modern urban life, where meaning becomes increasingly difficult to sustain. Ideological challenges to Eliot's urban critique. Eliot's urban vision has been critically debated. Some scholars argue that the poems reflect cultural elitism because its complex references assumed an educated reader. From this perspective, Eliot observes the urban crowd from a distance rather than representing the full diversity of metropolitan experience, raising questions about the universality of his critique. Critical limits of Eliot's urban visions. The poems also has some critical limitations. It largely excludes working class communities, immigrant population, and colonial perspective that shapes London's urban life. In addition, female figures often appears as an objective of anxiety rather than active subjects of experience. These limitations define the boundaries of Eliot's metropolitan vision. Structural mechanism of the unreal city. Urban alienation emerges through the several structural processes. Modern cities prioritize economic production and efficiency, producing anonymity within the crowded space. Continuous urban stimuli lead to psychological fragmentation, while social interaction become increasingly mechanical. These conditions cultivate in spiritual isolation, which Eliot symbolically represent through the concept of the unreal city. Here, hypothesis justified the whole presentation. Here, the analysis confirms that urban space and psychological fragmentation and are closely connected in the Westland. Anonymous crowd, fragmented poetic structure, and mechanized urban life all contribute to alienation. Although Eliot's perspective has a certain limitation, his poem still provides a powerful framework for understanding the psychological consequences of modern urban life. To conclude, we can say that the Westland by T.S. Eliot remains a foundational modernist text For interpreting urban modernity, Eliot's fragmented poetic structure captures the disorientation and loneliness of metropolitan life. Despite its cultural limitations, the concept of the unreal city continues to illuminate contemporary conditions of fragmentation and loss of meaning, as well as the weakened human connection. These are my learning outcomes. These are the references, and thank you. If anyone has any question, they are free to ask. And Eliot's representation of the modern city. So at this point, globalization has transformed cities into multicultural and interconnected spaces, while Eliot portrays largely homogeneous metropolitan culture. Contemporary cities contain diverse identities and experience, suggesting this suggests that urban alienation must be understood through the social, cultural, as well as global perspectives.
So my question to you is that uh, could the could the mental health crisis in modern cities be understood through Eliot's concept of urban fragmentation?
So for this question, I say that many psychologists link urban life with rising levels of anxiety, depression, and loneliness. Eliot's fragmented poetic structure anticipates this psychological condition by representing consciousness as a disjointed. Poem therefore provides an clear picture of the mental health pressures of contemporary modern existence. Thank you.
Okay, so hello everyone, myself Radhika Mehta, and today I will represent this topic from Thunder to Dharma, reimagining Upanishadic and Gita ethics in the Westland. So these are the infographics of my topic, and here are my academic information and presentation details, table of content. And my research question is, how does T.S. Eliot incorporate Upanishadic ethics like Dath, Dayadhvam, and Damiyat in the Westland to address modern spiritual crisis? And the second research question is, how is the concept of dharma from the Bhagavad Gita reflected in the poem as a solution to moral confusion and loss of direction in the modern life? So here our hypothesis, the Westland represent the spiritual emptiness of modern civilization, and Eliot uses Upanishadic teaching to suggest suggest moral discipline and self-control as a solution. So the poem reflected the Bhagavad Gita's concept of dharma, proposing that selfless action and the ethical responsibility can restore meaning and balance in the fragmented modern world. So here is the introductions. The Wastelands, as we know that published in the 1922 by T.S. Eliot, is one of the most significant poem of modernist literature, reflecting the spiritual and cultural crisis of the early 20th century, written in the aftermath of World War I. The poem portrays a fragmented and disillusioned world where individuals experience loss of faith, emotional emptiness, and moral confusions. Eliot presents modern civilization as barren and lifeless, symbolized through the image of the wastelands. However, the poem does not merely describe despair, it also suggests that a path towards spiritual regenerations. In the final sections, we can see that Eliot introduced ideas from Indian philosophy, particularly in the concept of Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita also, and to offer ethical and spiritual solution to modern chaos. Now let's move on to modern crisis in the poem. So the central of the theme in the Wastelands is the depictions of a modern world suffering from deep spiritual decay, devastations caused by World War I. And led to collapse of traditional values and religious beliefs, leaving in individual in a state of confusion and despair. So, modern crisis in the poem is the poem shows that how the modern people are unhappy and disconnected with each others, and they do not have the strong values or emotions and feelings also, and life feels like meaningless. Symbolisms of the wasteland. The images of the wasteland is not merely physical but deeply symbolic of inner barrenness and moral decay. It represents a world in which human beings are disconnected from themselves, from others, and from spiritual truth. So symbolism of the wastelands is showing like the wastelands means that a dry and empty life, and it show people who have no love and no faith and no real happiness in their own life also. So now let's move on the another one is Upanishadic ethics, the voice of thunder. In the final sections of the poem, Eliot introduced the voice of thunder, which is derived from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The thunder utters the syllables, as we know that the three da, which conveys three important ethical teaching as that. Dayadvam and Damyat. So that is represent the meaning of give. Dayadvam is sympathy to someone, and Damyat it's represent the meaning of control. And these principles emphasize generally compositions and self-discipline as essential value of human life. So in this Upanishadic ethics, we can see that three da words is gives to other, and be kind and control yourself. This idea helps to people live a better and meaningful life. Now let's move on. The another slide is the significance of Upanishadic techniques. The Upanishadic techniques presented through the thunder directly address the problem of the modern world. The command that encourages individual to overcome selfishness through generosity, while the Yadvam promotes empathy and understanding in the place of emotional isolation. Damyat, on the other hand, call for self-control and discipline, which are necessary to regulate human desires and impulse. So, in the significance of Upanishadic techniques, we can also see that in a contemporary situation, without selfishness, we can't do anything or everything. Out of 100 people's, out of 100 people's, 80% people are always do for their selfishness, and this pattern we can see that in contemporary situation in the society. So the meaning of da as the iti hovacha damyatah datah dayadvam, and I introduce the meaning of da in three pattern: dattah, dayadvam, and damyatah. So that meaning is like the दातव्यमितिः यदानं दीयतेनु उपकारिणी देशे काले च पात्रे च tadanam satvikam srutam. So the clear meaning of the dat is like danah, dan to someone, and dayatvam is represent the meaning of the compassion, as in Sanskrit shloka refers to adrishta sarva bhutanam maitrah karuna eva cha निर्ममोर निअहंकारः समदुःखः सुखः श्रमिः. And the damyat meaning that like self control. So udareda atmanam atmanam नात्मानं वसादयेत आत्ममेव यात्मत्मो बन्धुरात्मेव रिपुरात्मनः. So the clear meaning of the three da datta dayadvam m damyat. So Bhagavad Gita and the concept of the dharma. So in the Bhagavad Gita epic, we can see that in addition to the Upanishad, Eliot poems also reflect the influence of the Bhagavad Gita, and particularly its concept of dharma. Dharma refers to duty, moral responsibility, and righteous action. So in this concept, I also added the Bhagavad Gita talks about the Arjuna who feels confused about his duty in Kurukshetra, and this is similar to people today who feel lost and unsure about their purpose, like in the wastelands. So Gita and the modern human condition. In a contemporary situation, we can also see that without any selfishness, we can't do anything or everything. So follow the Gita concept like duty as a dharma, and act without selfishness, desire to stay calm and detach with each others. So now let's move on comparative analysis. A comparison of the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Westland reveals a meaningful connection between these texts. The Upanishads emphasize inner disciplines and self-realization, and while the Bhagavad Gita focuses on the ethical action and duty. So this part is compares the three texts, Upanishad, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Westland, as a focus on inner discipline and self-realization, as the Bhagavad Gita focus on the action and duty, and the Westland show the confused and directness of the world. Eliot's synthesis of Eastern philosophy. So, in this, Eliot's use of Indian philosophy represent the synthesis of Eastern and Western thoughts. He integrates the Upanishadic emphasis on inner transformation with the Gita's focus on ethical action, thereby creating a holistic vision of the human life. So final message I also include this Sanskrit shloka, and at the end of the Westland, the word Shanti is the meaning of the peace. Some kinds of peace, as even in a chaotic world, peace is possible through self-control and any kind of situation in human life also, and take it in a right action. So the final and conclusion parts also represent the Shanti mantra. And when we studied in our school life, also we chanting the mantra of Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So in a conclusion, the Westland presents a powerful critics of modern civilization, depicting a world characterized by spiritual emptiness and moral confusion. However, Eliot does not leave the reader in despair. Instead, he offers a path towards renewal through the intergeneration of Upanishadic ethics and the Bhagavad Gita's concept of the Dharma. So these are my learning outcomes, and these are the work cited. And thank you. Now, question are welcome.
So my question is, what is your interpretation of the Westland in today's context?
Okay, so I thought like when we do this three concept of daya, dan, and punya in our life, so without any selfishness and any kind of reason, we can't do anything or everything. But when we choose this Bhagavad Gita concept, so take it seriously and do anything or everything without any your selfishness and any purpose of the life. So if you are doing the work and activity without any selfishness, so that's matter also. But if you you are working in your life as a something achieving to someone, so that's not good. So the another question is,
So my question to you is that how does the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads apply to the modern life in the wasteland?
okay, so the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishadic concept, it's reflect to offer the solutions to the spiritual crisis in the Westlands, as we know that, and through the self disciplines and detachments and writers the action in our life also. Thank you. This is from my side.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Today's my presentation topic is Modernist Anxiety and Media-Driven Reality, from T.S. Eliot to cultural critic to the cinematic satire of Bollywood film PK. Here is my academic detail and presentation detail. This is the table of content. My research question is, does modern media strip authentic meaning from culture and religion, substituting a simplified product? And do Eliot's poetry and PK diagnose the same mechanism across different centuries? And central hypothesis is both texts argues that mass media reduce complex cultural and spiritual meaning to packaged commodity, and that an outsider figure is required to expose this substitution. Here is the timeline of my presentation topic. The Westland, what is published in 1922, and the PK film, what is released on 2024. In introduction, two texts and one diagnosis. T.S. Eliot's Westland opens the fragmented voice. No single narrator holds the poem together because the culture it depicts no longer hold together either. In Rajkumar Hirani's PK open with alien arrive in Rajasthan desert, naked and bewildered. The culture he enters is equally fragmented, organized around competing religious brands rather than shared meaning. In 92 years separate the two works, the gap is historical, not conceptual. Eliot wrote from the inside European post-war dislocation. Hirani wrote from inside India post-liberalization, communal tension. Both works require an outsider to make their case. Eliot fractured voiceless speakers, and Piquet's alien are not protagonists with answer, but figures who, in incomprehension, force the question the system works to prevent it. Eliot's critique, the loss of communal energy. The Westland opening line gives us April is the cruelest month. It refused the seasonal consolation that popular culture would offer. Established fragmentation as the only honest register. In The Hollow Man, the famous closing line performing their own dissolution. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang but a whimper. In Change recovers Eliot's own position. Fine art is the refinement of popular art, not its antithesis, and the music hall offered the communal participation that cinema, by contrast, absorbed passively. The danger for Eliot is crucial. The media that simplifies meaning for consumption simultaneously destroys the communal energy that gives popular culture its vitality, leaving only passive spectatorship. Eliot versus Hirani's structural parallel across the century. If we see the setting, the Westland and the Hollow Man is written in the post-World War I London broken city and broken voice, whereas the PK is contemporary Delhi urban religious marketplace. The core problem is media package culture as the nationalist allegory, and the in PK film, Goldman package religion as a brand commodity. The outsider in the Westland alienated modern speaker, no stable narrator. In PK film, the PK the alien, no prior code, no inherited belief. In media villain, the Time magazine reinterpreted Eliot as American icon. In PK film Tapaswi Baba, TV mediated Goldman franchise. Then the resolution is no resolution in the Westland. The poem fragments toward silence. In the PK film, PK exposed the duplicate authentic meaning partially restored. The media package meaning for consumption. In Time magazine's 1963 foreign relation piece reproduced the Westland opening quatrain to interpret John, John F. Kennedy's political failures. The poem becomes an occasional allegory stripped of its formal resistance. In PK film, Tapaswi Baba runs precisely this operation at scale. Television broadcast, schedule public appearance, and brand God box convert spiritual seeking into a tired commercial product. In Kadri and Mufti article, they note that Jai Prakash, Juggu's father, decorates every surface with Tapaswi Baba's photo and consult him before any decision. The Guru has replaced personal religious practice with a media managed substitutes. The outsider figure exposes the substitute. In the PK film, arrives on the earth with no prior language, no religious inheritance, and no social code. In Eliot's speakers in the Westland land hold no stable position. Madam societies, the type is Tiresias, each is fragments unable to interpret the cultural noise surrounding them. Yet each name what the noise conceals. Nair argues that making PK an alien was the only credible device to achieve the film's secular argument. A character from any Indian religion or community would bring the prejudice and the film intended to expose. Both Eliot's and fractured speaker and PK asked the same question, why are you following these codes? Neither receive a satisfactory answer from within the system because the system's function is to foster question. In cinematic satire as a modern mode of cultural critique, Chinese trace Eliot's lifelong investment in particular form. This memorial essay on music hall comedian Marin Eliot identifies her as the last artist to give the working class genuine communal experience rather than passive consumption. In PK work, in what Nair terms the Bollywood religious comedy genre, it does not merely include comic episodes but sustain a comic worldwide as its primary critical instrument. Dwyer argues that Hindi cinema is not about what is, but about what should or could be. PK uses the imaginative space Bollywood occupies to purpose a religiosity based on humanist ethics rather than institutional authorities. The duplicate god PK's center analytic concept. In the film Climatic Scenes, PK announced, apart from the god who created human, there is a duplicate god whose image resembles those who created him, a god built on lies, corruption, and preference on the wealthy. Eliot's The Wasteland makes the same distinction without naming it. The voice of thunder at the poem's close, da da da, means datta damyata dayadvam, gesture towards the aesthetic demand, while the voice of fortune teller, typist, and the pub conversation represent the substitute. Kadri and Mufti observe that PK's Goldman franchise operates through mediatization. Like media, religion offers symbol, icon, and stories to make sense of the world. And when the two systems merge, the franchise replaces the faith. A contested ground where the comparison stands. Eliot's critique is without resolution. The wasteland ends in fragment and the hollow man ends in whimper. PK ends with the aliens return home and the villain exposed on the live television. The film requires a Bollywood resolution that Eliot's poetry specifically refuses. Nair knows that PK is ultimately conservative as a narrative enterprise. It calls it to house cleaning, not revolutionary overthrow, which distance is from genuine cultural despair that gives the wasteland its force. While the center critique of the duplicate god remains solid, the formal comparison has limits. Fragmentation and cinematic comedy function similarly in their mechanism but carry vastly different political and ideological stake. In conclusion, both the Wasteland and PK argues that authentic culture and the spiritual meaning has been replaced by mediated substitute packaged for consumption by instituting whose interest is certainly not truth. The outsider figure in both works, Eliot's fractured speaker and the PK's alien, function as the structural necessity. Only a consciousness outside the system can name the system council. Harris shows that the media mechanism Eliot feared was already operational by 1963. Nair and Kadri and Mufti shows it had become global Bollywood franchise by 2014. The diagnosis is confirmed across century of evidences. The duplicate god is the film's precise name for what Eliot could only fragment toward in the 1922. The structural substitution of managed meaning for lived faith 92 years later in color on screen for 200 million people. Here are the references and thank you. Now questions are welcome.
So my question is, does modern media replace authentic meaning with a package substitute?
Yes, modern media has replaced the authentic meaning with package substitute. If we see, no one is saying the real truth, what is, but they only show us the good things, not the deeper truth. If we see in real also, the movie of 2 hour and 2.5 hour is showing in the trailer and showing only good things and people are going to watch movies.
So my question is, what is the film PK's concept of the duplicate god?
If we see duplicate god means the god who is created by corrupt religious leaders. If we see in the film PK, the Tapasvi Baba created false god, and they are uses our fears and dreams to fulfill their and fulfill their money and all the requirement. Thank you.
સિદ્ધાર્થ અમારું નથી મારું કેમ નથી દેખાતું અલા યાર અહીંયા મળ્યો તો પણ અહીંયા હા રે હા પણ નહોતું દેખાતું
Hello everyone, myself KRUTIBEN, and today I am going to present my topic on the green light on the Emerald Estate, commodity fetishism and the parasitic Gothic, comparative media studies between the Great Gatsby and the Solburn. This is my presentation details and academic details. This is my table of content which I will discuss today. So first, to begins, let's look at our two major texts. First, F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby, 1950 novel set in Jazz Age, and where J. Gatsby tries to buy his way into American dream and old money. On other side, Emerald Fennell's the 2023 film Saltburn, set in England, and here Oliver Quick is an outsider and invited into a vast Gothic estate. And while Gatsby wanted to belong to the systems, and specifically Oliver wants to consume it. Here is my research question: that how do F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby, and the Emerald Fennell Saltburn use the figure of class, outsider, and unreliable narrator to critique the myth of social mobility, commodity fetishism, and the moral corruption of inherited wealth? And my hypothesis is that both The Great Gatsby and the Saltburn argues that class aspiration under capitalism is structurally self-defeating, and the outsider who seeks assimilations like Gatsby is destroyed by the system, while the outsider who seeks to subvert it like Oliver Quick must become the very thing he despises, and revealing that the myth of meritocracy conceals a parasitic logic at the heart of old money culture. My master argument is that while J. Gatsby attempts to buy his way into the elite through the myth of the American dream, on other side, Oliver Quick recognizes the dream is a lie and chooses to consume the elite instead. So both works specifically deploy an unreliable first-person narrator to expose the moral decay of old money and toxic nature of class envy. And to break this down, we will look at these four pillars of analysis. First pillar is the gaze and the surveillance. The second pillar is the estate as a Gothic space. The third one is the unreliable narrator, and the last and fourth one is the romanticism to the parasite. So let's start with pillar one, gaze and surveillance. So in the Gatsby, the faded eyes of T.J. Ecclesbuck represent godless and moral judgment over the materialistic society, while Nick watch as a complicit observer. And the other side, Saltburn, the estate is a mirror of mirrors and window, and everyone is watching, but Oliver weaponized this gaze and using Lacan's mirror stage perform to a fake self that manipulate his audience as well. And Next pillar is the estate as a Gothic space. So it examines the specifically environment. So how Gatsby's mansion is purely a fake normal hotel, and between his world and old money lies the value of asses and all those things. But in other side, we can see how Saltburn is a however is a living museum, and it is a itself Gothic it himself. So and it absorbs Oliver organically. So he eventually absorbs it, and it's tried. And as you can see here, in the visual contrast between two estates, both here represent specifically aesthetic of extreme excess and masking the road underneath. Third one is the unreliable narrator. So it majorly focus on our narrators. So here we have two narrators. First Nick Carraway and other is Oliver Quick. So Nick Carraway is an invited outsider to judge the elite, but stay complicit, and he edits the romanticize his memories out of the regrets. And on other side, Oliver Quick engineering his own invitations, and he has no moral any limits, and his observation turn into specifically elimination. But his narration is not regretful. It's a retrospective victory lab built on suppressed truth. Last pillar is from romanticism to the parasite. So it tracks majorly the evolution of the outsider. So the one side Gatsby is the romantic, and he believe in green light and get a better future. But ultimately, Oliver becomes and realizing that the system is rich, and he abandoned the dream to destroy the present and consume the host. And the wow factor is party as a spectacle. So let's look how both texts use parties. And Gatsby's party are amusement park like, and a spectacle without intimacy where he watches from the margins. But on other side, Saltburn's parties is specifically highlights by ironic murder on the dance floor, are Oliver's personal theater and used to engineer destruction the horde. So, in short, the both parties' performance of for their belongings and end up excluding or destroying the hordes. And finally, our analysis is grounded in four framework. First, Lacan's mirror stage for identity performance, and Marx's commodity fetishism for class conflict, and post-parasitic Gothic for decaying estate, and theory of unreliable narration to show how our sympathy is manipulated. And this is the conclusion. So in short, the dreams, their both dreams are devoured, and Gatsby's romanticized and Oliver strategized both are destroyed or tempered by the same lie. And here is my learning outcome, which I have learned throughout my presentation. These are the references. Thank you. Please, questions are welcome.
So, Kruti, my question is to you. While the green light represents a distinct hope for Gatsby, what serves as the green light for Oliver in Saltburn, and how does its mean shifts as he gains control of the estate?
Thank you, Radhika, for your question. So my answer is that Gatsby's light is some kind of distance, and it told about unattainable hope for the past. But in Saltburn, we can see how the estate is itself a light, and it shifts from the symbol of longing to a trophy of conquest. And as Oliver moves from watching to in the movie to owning to the greenery. So yeah, this is my answer. Next one.
My question is, does the comparison suggest that Gatsby's failure and Oliver's success are due to different method or fetishizing the wealth, or simply because one of a romantic and the other is predator?
Yes, thank you for your question. So Gatsby fails because his romantic fetishism, because he treats wealth as a dream to win Daisy, but Oliver succeeds through his predatory fetishism because he treated wealth as a host to consume. So ultimately, as we know that the dreamers always is crushed by the elite, and while the other side, parasite is always replace them. Yeah, so that is all from my side. Thank you.
Hello everyone, myself Mansi Makwana, and today's my presentation topic is glittering wealth and the loneliness within a modernist critique of materialism and the human cost of consumer culture in the Great Gatsby. Here are my academic and presentation details. This is table of contents. My research question is, how does the Great Gatsby employ modernist narrative techniques and symbolism to critique the rise of materialism and consumer culture in the 1920s, and in what ways does it reveal the resulting emotional emptiness, moral decay, and profound loneliness experienced by its characters? This study hypothesized that the Great Gatsby present materialism and consumer culture as deceptive force, de- decep- deceptive forces that promise happiness and success, but ultimately result in emotional emptiness, moral decline, and isolation, and that through modernist techniques and symbolism, Fitzgerald exposes the human cost of pursuing wealth over genuine relationships and inner fulfillment. The Great Gatsby is a significant modernist novel that reflects the social and cultural realities of the 1920s, a period marked by a rapid economic growth and the rise of consumer culture. Also, the novel exposes the illusion of the American dream, suggesting that the pursuit of wealth leads not to fulfillment but to frustration and isolation. Here, Fitzgerald empathizes on materialism and consumer culture. This shows wealth become the primary school of success, social status, and personal identity, replacing traditional values such as honesty, integrity, and hard work. People are increasingly judged and valued based on their financial status than their moral character or inner qualities, highlighting the dominance of materialism. Also, this environment reflects a broader culture of hedonism and constant consumptions, where the pursuit of pleasure and material goods becomes the central goal of the life. Despite the outward display, the glittering wealth and success, this materialistic lifestyle ultimately hides a lack of true values, emotional depth, and the meaningful human connections. Then in wealth and the illusion of happiness, also wealth creates as a false sense of success and fulfillment, giving the appearance of happiness while hiding deeper emotional dissatisfaction. Also, money gradually begins to replace genuine emotions and meaningful human connections, making relationships superficial. The character's dependence on wealth leads to emotional emptiness, broken relationships, and loss of authenticity. Loneliness and emotional emptiness. Although the characters are constantly surrounded by people and social activity, they experience a deep sense of loneliness and inner isolation. The character of Daisy appears emotionally distant and detached, showing an inability to form genuine emotional connections. Also, this novel reflects on modernist critique, that key feature of modernism, highlighting a world that is fragmented, uncertain, and morally unstable. Fitzgerald uses symbolism and narrative style to critically examine the superficial and materialistic nature of society. Also, the novel offers a strong critique of moral decay, exposing how wealth and consumer culture have corrupted human values. Then, human cost of consumer culture. The dominance of consumer culture leads to a deep emotional emptiness as material success fails to provide true inner fulfillment. Continuous pursuit of luxury and pleasure result in moral corruption, weakening ethical values and social responsibility. Despite achieving eternal success and wealth, individuals experience their loneliness and isolation, revealing the true human cost of materialism. In conclusion, The Great Gatsby presents a powerful critique of materialism and consumer culture by revealing that wealth creates only a temporary illusions of happiness, while in reality it leads to emotional emptiness, loneliness, and moral decline among the characters. Throughout this presentation, I understood how the Great Gatsby shows that money and luxury do not guarantee true happiness. Also, I realized that other success can hide inner loneliness and people may feel empty even when they have everything. I learned to connect literature with real life, understanding that human values and relationships are more important than material success. These are my references, and thank you. Now questions are open.
My question is, how does the novel present the negative effect of consumer culture on human relationship, and how can we relate it to modern lifestyle?
So in The Great Gatsby, consumer culture makes relationship fake and superficial. People care more about money and status rather than emotions. For example, they get his love for Daisy and marriage between Tom and Daisy lack a true connection. Also, people focus on money, social media images rather than true or reality. So yeah. No.
My question is, what ways does the character of Jay Gatsby embody the contradictions of the American dream and reflect the limitations of material success in The Great Gatsby?
Yeah, Jay Gatsby shows both failure and success of American dream in The Great Gatsby. He becomes rich from a poor background, and he gets success, but he uses money to win Daisy's love. This and he fails emotionally. This shows contradiction. So thank you. This is from my side.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mulratsi, and today my presentation topic is romantic illusion and the pursuit of happiness and crisis of value in the Great Gatsby, Nietzschean reading. So this is my academic information, and this is table of content and introduction. The Great Gatsby explored the tension between the romantic aspiration and the social reality in the modern American life. It's represent of conflict of the big dream and the social harsh reality. And the novel reflects the broader cultural ideal of the American dream, particularly the promise of the pursuit of happiness in the American society. Basically, American dream is about to get happiness from the wealth. And critics argue that the Gatsby dream represent a romantic illusion that the inspires aspiration, yet inevitably confronts social and moral limitation. Nietzsche's philosophy provide a useful framework for the understanding this tension, especially his ideas about the illusion, self-creation, and instability of moral values. This presentation examines how Fitzgerald's novel reveals the conflict between the idealistic aspiration and the moral crisis of the modern society through a Nietzschean perspective. So, research question of this particular presentation: how does the great Gatsby represent the American dream as a pursuit of the happiness in the modern American society? In what ways does the Gatsby's dream function as a romantic illusion that the sustained aspiration yet remains unattainable? How can Nietzsche's idea about the illusion and the self-creation help explain Gatsby's identity and ambition? How does the novel reveals a crisis of the modern values in the society shaped by wealth and power? So, hypothesis of this presentation: Gatsby's dream represent a romantic illusion that the sustained aspiration and the ambition. However, the novel depicts collapse of the moral responsibility and the ethical values. And from Nietzschean perspective, this reflects a society where the material success replaces authentic meaning. And Fitzgerald's represent the American dream as the both an inspiring ideal and also tragic illusion. So now we discuss about the theoretical framework of the Nietzsche. In the Birth of Tragedy, Nietzsche explained that the illusion and the artistic imagination help human being endure reality and give meaning to the life. So, for an example, in the Ramayana, there is a concept of Pushpak Viman that today's reality. We can see the flying objects, and we can also fly in the sky by this kind of object, and that is imagination of 3 to 4,000 years ago. And in thus spoke Zarathustra by the Nietzsche, he represents the idea that the individual attempt to shape their own identity through the aspiration, ambition, and self-creation. For an example, a person who wants to become a politician, so he first will have to learn about to go in the public and speak about the problems of the people of the society, and also he also will have to learn about butter polishing to the people and get more and more vote. And in the genealogy of the moral, Nietzsche argued that the moral values are the historically constructed rather than the universal truth. And this idea helped explain how the aspiration, illusion, and the instability of the moral values operates in the great Gatsby. So, American dream and the pursuit of the happiness. The American dream is closely connected to the national ideal of the pursuit of happiness. It's kind of happiness that come from the materialistic success and wealth. According to CHAUHAN, this idea represents a belief that the individual can shape their own destiny through the ambition and effort. In the great Gatsby, Gatsby's desire for the wealth and social status reflects this pursuit for the happiness. However, the novel also shows how the dream becomes distorted when the material success replaces deeper human values. Fitzgerald therefore present the American dream as both as a powerful aspiration and also source of disillusionment. So, romantic illusion and the myths of Gatsby. Kenneth Unable argue that the central power of the great Gatsby lies in the portrayal of the romantic dream that the continually inspire aspiration despite inevitable failure. Gatsby's dream represent a larger pattern of the human longing rather than the simple personal ambition. Here, Gatsby does not want money, but it's a deep human desire to achieve something great, and also contains the possibility of failure. Gatsby's transformed Daisy into idealized symbol of the fulfillment and happiness, turning his personal desire into a broader romantic vision. Through this idealization, Gatsby pursuit become less about the disease herself and more about the dream she presents. Means it is Gatsby's idea that he wants to transfer Daisy into a symbol of the perfection. Ebel suggests that the Gatsby's dream should be understood as a mythic expression of the American aspiration, reflecting the enduring desire for the success, love, and transcendence within the American culture. In this way, Gatsby became the mythic figure of the American dream, embodying the tension between the romantic aspiration and social reality. However, the novel ultimately shows that this romantic illusion cannot survive, and the realities of the class division and the moral indifference reveals the tragic limits of the Gatsby's dream. So, self-creation of the identity. Thus spoken, Zarathustra, Friedrich Nietzsche argues that the individual attempt to create their own identity through the ambition and the self-transformation. As I give the example of the person who becomes the politician, and this idea appears in the great Gatsby's throughout the transformation of the James Gates into J. Gatsby. It a deliberate act of the invention. Gatsby construct a new identity through the wealth, appearance, and the social status to enter Daisy's world. It's also reflect the hypocrisy of the human values and also moral values that he wants to enter in the Daisy's world. He has to get success in his life and also earn wealth and appear and also societal status. And his self-creation reflect the belief that the identity can be shaped through the aspiration and imagination. And however, the novel shows the limit of the self-created identity within the rigid societal structure. Crisis of the moral value. On the genealogy of the moral, Friedrich Nietzsche argues that the moral values are historically constructed and shaped by the power relationship, power relations, and rather than the universal truth. This perspective helps explain the social world of the great Gatsby, where the wealth and social status replace the moral responsibility. A character such as Tom and Daisy represent a careless elite class who privilege allow them to avoid the consequences of their action. Their behavior reflects a society in which material power dominates ethical values, creating a broader moral crisis. Fitzgerald therefore portrays a world where the American dream becomes detached from the moral responsibility and leading to disillusionment and tragedy. So here is the different perspective of the different critics. So first is John F. Calhoun. His key argument is the American dream reflects the national ideal of the pursuit of the happiness, and its critical insight is the novel shows how this ideal become tied to wealth and social status. And second is Kenneth Ebel. Gatsby represent a romantic dream that the pursuit despite failure, and its critical insight the dream sustain aspiration but the remain the unattainable. Kenneth Ebel also give a second argument that Gatsby's function as a mythic figure of the American aspiration, and his story reflect the tension between the dream and reality. And both they argue that the American dream is both inspiring, disillusioning. Fitzgerald revealed the limits of the romantic idealism in the modern society. So conclusion, the great Gatsby portrays American dream as a powerful ideal connection to the national belief in the pursuit of happiness. Yet the novel also reveals how these ideals become the distort when the success is defined mainly through the wealth and social status. Gatsby's relentless pursuit of the daisy reflect a romantic illusion and the sustained aspiration and hope. But the narrative ultimately shows that this dream cannot be realized with the rigid social structure of the American society. From the Nietzsche's perspective, Gatsby's transformation from the James Gates to J. Gatsby represent an act of the self-creation, illustrating the human attempt to construct an identity and meaning through the ambition and imagination. At the same time, the behavior of the characters such as Tom and Daisy reveals a crisis of the moral values where the wealth and privilege replace responsibility and ethical accountability. These are the references. Thank you. Now questions are welcome.
So my question is that does Gatsby fail because of his own illusion or because of the society he tries to enter?
So basically, he fails because of this both reason. Because illusion of the dream. When he wants to be rich, that is his dream, but that is not compulsory that his dream will become true. And society which in which he wants to enter, it's also corrupt, and there is no door to enter it, because if he also achieved that success, then also he belongs to not that society. This is from my answer. Now second question.
My question to you, if Gatsby's dream is an illusion, why does Fitzgerald still present it as meaningful rather than completely false?
Okay, so basically what happens, our we human beings have a lifespan of the 70 to 100 years, and we are come to in this world. And so if we set a goal and set a dream to our life, and that's is an illusion. But if we spend the time period of the 70 to 100 years biologically, and what happened then, if we have not goal and not to doing anything, then our life is meaningless. If we set a goal in our life, and then we have a purpose to live a life. If we have not any purpose to live life, then we should die. And there is no meaning of the life, so why we should live the life? And also Albert Camus and Albert Camus and Samuel Beckett tell that human life is meaningless, but if we set a goal, and if we get this life, so then we set a goal. And so if we set a goal, it gives a purpose to our life. And if we have a purpose, then it's it's our we have something to achieve. That's why we live life. Thank you. This is from my side.
So, hello everyone. My name is Priyanka, and my today's topic is behind the glitter: what Gatsby's party do not reveal. So, this is my academic detail and presentation details. This is table of content, and let's start with introduction. The Great Gatsby The lavish party hosted by J. Gatsby appeared to symbolize wealth, glamour, and success in 1920s American society. Every weekend, Gatsby's mansion is filled with music, alcohol, and hundreds of guests who often do not even know their host. So my research question is, how do the extravagant parties in the Great Gatsby reveal the illusion behind the wealth and success in the American dream? And second is, what do Gatsby party hide about social values, identity, and emotional emptiness in 1920s? So my thesis statement is, the lavish party hosted by J. Gatsby appear to symbolize luxurious and success, but they actually expose the superficial materialism and moral emptiness of American society. Fitzgerald uses these spectacles to show the American dream has transformed into a performance of wealth rather than a pursuit of genius happiness. So, moving further, next slide is the American dream as an illusion. So analytical point is Gatsby represents the self-made man striving to achieve success and status. His wealth is mainly used in impress society and win back Daisy. American dream becomes destroyed into a pursuit of money and social recognition. And a true happiness and belonging remain unstability despite material success. So next slide is about Gatsby's party, spectacles and performance. So Gatsby's party function as a public spectacles of wealth and luxury. Many guests attend without knowing Gatsby's personality and personally don't know about Gatsby. The party represents a culture focused on display, entertainment, and social performance. And Fitzgerald uses this event to show how wealth is performed and admired in society. Moving further, consumer culture and identity performance. Gatsby lifestyle is carefully constructed in identity, meant to appear wealth and respectable. His party serve as a public stage where status and identity perform. Society value people based on wealth, luxury, and social imagery rather than character. This reflects a modern culture where identity become tied to consumption and material display. Moving further, psychological and fragmentation beneath two spectacles. So analytical point is the luxurious social world mask inner emptiness and emotional instability. And Joy Gatsby creates a glamorous persona while hiding deep loneliness and obsession with the past. Social interaction at the party are often superficial and disconnected. And Paulson critic argues that the character display psychological splitting between appearance and inner reality. This fragmentation reflects the moral and emotional instability of modern society. And moving further, mourning and melancholy in empty aftermath. So Gatsby's wealth and party mask his deep longing for Daisy and past. The celebration and glamour cannot remove the underlying sense of loss and dissatisfaction. The social world of novel reflects the culture struggling, while melancholia rather than a genius fulfillment. Critics argues that Gatsby's life represents a form of melancholy, attachments to the unattainable dream. So next slide is about Gatsby as a false prophet of dream. So central idea is Gatsby function as a symbolic prophet of American dream, promising success through wealth and reinvention. Gatsby creates a myth image of success, greatness through wealth and parties and reputation. His success is tied to legal business and social performance, not genius achievement. Gatsby believes that wealth can recreate the past and win Daisy, showing the dream's illusion. And critic argues that a deeper, from my references, critic argues that the self-made man ideals become diminished and corrupted in 1920s culture. So, and during culture and significance, Fitzgerald's portrayal of wealth and glamorous reveals the moral emptiness behind the social success. Also, the story reflects the broader social issues of consumer culture, class division, and the pursuit of status. Also, Gatsby rise and fall show how American dream can become corrupted by wealth and ambition. And critic notes that the novel remains culturally important because it's continued to resonate with modern societies obsessed with wealth and success. So my conclusion is in the Great Gatsby, the extravagant party hosted by Joy Gatsby appeared to represent the glamour, wealth, and success of American dream. However, these celebrations gradually reveals the superficial nature of society that attends them. Grades comes not for friendship but luxury, entertainment and social status. Fitzgerald uses these parties to expose the culture dominated by materialism, where wealth becomes a performance rather than a source of genius happiness. Gatsby himself represents the tragic illusion of American dream, believing that money spectacles and can recreate the past. Ultimately, the novel shows that behind the glitter of Gatsby party lies the loneliness, illusion, and the failure of American dream. So my learning outcome is I have understood how Gatsby's party symbolized the illusion of wealth and glamour in the Great Gatsby. And I have in my presentation how Fitzgerald critique the American dream through the characters of J. Gatsby. And I have identified the themes of materialism, consumer culture, and social performance in novel, and analyzed how the glittering parties hide emotional emptiness and loneliness in society of roaring 20s, and recognized the gap between appearance and reality that Fitzgerald exposed in the novel. So these are my references. And if anyone has any question, feel free to ask.
My question is to you. Which critic argues that the American dream in Gatsby is diminishes or corrupted?
So from my references, Jeffrey Louis Decker argues that the idea of self-made men is diminished and American dreams become corrupted by materialism and illusion.
My question is to you that why do people attend the Gatsby's party if they don't know him?
People attend Gatsby's party because people for entertainment, for alcohol, and for social status, not for Gatsby. This shows that society values only display or a pleasure over a real relationship. Thank you, everyone. This is from my side.
Good afternoon, everyone. My topic is Scott Fitzgerald, The Lyric Sensibility and the American Wasteland. These are my academic and presentation details. Table of contents. My research question is, how does the tension between heightened lyricism and Spenglerian pessimism in F. Scott Fitzgerald's Over function as a critique of the American dream, and how does the imaginative possession of wealth reveal the moral decay of modern society? My hypothesis is Fitzgerald transcends the label of a regional jazz age laureate. By employing a deliberate nostalgic irony, his intense lyric expressiveness serves to mask and subsequently expose the spiritual desolation of a materialistic society, establishing a trajectory of social doom that defines his entire literary career. Introduction. The trajectory of disenchantment. While early works documented youthful rebellion, Fitzgerald's mature fiction marks a profound shift toward a searching critique of American society. As it is said in the quote, "It is what preyed on Gatsby, what foul dust floated in the wake of his dreams that temporarily closed out my interest in the abortive sorrows and short-winded elections of men." And also in The Tender is Night, the destructive, isolating power of wealth is the foundational theme of his career, stretching from the beautiful and damned to the psychological exhaustion of Tender is the Night. The lyric world, nostalgic irony. When we come to know about the parties of the Gatsby, we see that they are heightened and there is much glittering in the parties, but what lies behind them is their corrupted beauty. By mean of corruptible beauty, we can also refer to Daisy Buchanan. Fitzgerald's narrative genius is not strictly intellectual but lyric and personal. He does not critique American dream or anything in the novel through a very satirical tone, but in a lyric and personal tone. He transforms raw individual sentiment into a constitutive reality that defines a cultural epoch. His overreaching tone is inherently sentimentally cynical. A sophisticated narrative stance that acknowledges the corruptibility of beauty while simultaneously mourning the loss. He had lost himself. He could not tell the hour when, or day, or the week, the month, or the year. The Spenglerian decline. Fitzgerald's prose wasteland. Fitzgerald's overreaching vision structurally aligns with Eliot's The Wasteland, acting as a prose manifestation of modern world horror and disillusionment. If the wasteland portrays the entire wasteland in the modern era, Fitzgerald also presents this kind of things in his Valley of Ashes. The landscapes are not merely physical settings, but replicas of a society in terminal. This is a Valley of Ashes. We can compare this Valley of Ashes as the whole barren land which is referred to in the Westland. This is a Valley of Ashes, a fantastic farm where ashes grow like wheat into ridges and hills, where ashes take the form of houses and chimneys and rising smoke. Imaginative possession, the corrupting charm of capital. The great Gatsby repeatedly wants to go back to his previous dream of getting a Daisy, and this is a corrupting charm. A recurring motif in Fitzgerald's work is the inexhaustible corrupting charm of capital itself. Human lyricism and romantic desire are constantly transformed into a marketable commodity. As it is well said in the novel, the voice of Daisy Buchanan is full of money. He said suddenly, it was full of money. That was the inexhaustible charm that rose and fell in it, the jingle of it. Fitzgerald's protagonists represent an imaginative possession of American life, an extraordinary capacity for wonder tragically misdirected toward material accumulation. They are tragically misdirected towards the goal which is not to be acquired, such as the Great Gatsby going after Daisy Buchanan. The pathology of wealth, a cross-textual synthesis. Fitzgerald systematically explored the destruction of the romantic individuals when brought into contact with established capital across his major works. Anthony Patch, who is the protagonist of his work, The Beautiful and Damned, destroyed by paralyzed waiting and anticipation of unearned inherited wealth. J. Gatsby, destroyed by the delusion that his imaginary possession, just as Daisy Buchanan, and raw ambition can buy access to a morally bankrupt established elite. Gatsby wants to be included in the elite class, but ultimately he fails to do so. Dick Dever, Tender is the Night, destroyed by the psychological vampirism of the wealthy class, draining the professional and spiritual vitality to sustain their own careless experience. The dual agent epistemological instability. Apart from Nick Carraway, every character in The Great Gatsby is questionably morally corrupted. The subjective participant is Nick Carraway, but when we look objectively, the character of Nick Carraway is also corrupted to some extent. This duality successfully grounds his romantic impulses in profound moral revulsions. The aesthetic of decay. A bleak aesthetic contrast to the romantic flush of Jayati, a terminal dumping ground and physical cost of American industrial wealth. As we know, the value of ashes is the cost paid by the people like Martil who reside in the Valley of Ashes, and they are just the dumping grounds produced by the wealth of new and old money people. This is my conclusion. Fitzgerald's intense lyricism does not celebrate the American dream. Rather, it serves to heighten the tragedy of its inevitable Spengellerian decline. The tension between his aesthetic wonder and moral horror exposes how the imaginative possession of wealth leads strictly to spiritual bankruptcy. His Overy ultimately diagnoses a society that offers no mechanism for salvation, leaving humanity trapped in a cycle of futile pursuit. As we know, by the end of the novel, all the imaginative possession goes futile. Gatsby believed in the green light, which was his imaginative possession, the organic future that year by year recedes before us. So we beat on, both against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. These are my references. Thank you. If anyone has any question.
So my question is, how does Fitzgerald's imaginative possession of wealth ultimately leads to the spiritual bankruptcy of his protagonist?
One of the major example of his protagonist who goes morally bankrupt due to pursuit of wealth is J. Gatsby. J. Gatsby wants to earn money, not to just earn money, but he wants to earn money to take the possession of Daisy Buchanan, and that is where the spiritual bankruptcy lies. He does not want money to do anything, but this kind of spiritually desolated aims lead to his doom. Any other question?
Sagar, my question to you is, what is nostalgic irony, and how does this tone function to expose spiritual desolation?
Mainly, the nostalgic irony lies in the way F. Scott Fitzgerald critique the American dream or the American society in a particular or general. He does not criticize the society the way other writers does, such as in the Westland, T.S. Eliot and Pope and Swift does in their satires, but he does satire in such a way that feels nostalgic. And on the surface, you think that this is a very good novel, and it is about glittering of the parties and all kind of these imaginative and good things that are wealthy. Everyone is wealthy and these kind of things. but what lies beneath them is the spiritual resolution. And this kind of critique is done with the way Fitzgerald uses characters, story, plot, and language. His language is ironical but nostalgical ironic. He does not critique in such a harsh manner, such as Pope and Swift, but he criticizes society in a not a nostalgic irony. Thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today's my presentation topic is speculative identity. Bourdieu's form of capital and the venture labors of self-fashioning in the Great Gatsby and the 21st century creators economy. This is academic and presentation details. This is table of content. My research questions is that how do individuals construct a speculative identity as a form of venture labor through the accumulations and conversations of a capital in the Great Gatsby and the 21st century creator economy hypothesis. In both the Great Gatsby and the 21st century creator economy, identity function as a speculative venture labor in which individuals strategically accumulate and convert economic, cultural, social, and symbolic capital to achieve visibility and social mobility. However, despite this effort, structural equalities limit the full legitimacy and success of this constructed identity. Introduction. In today's world, identity is not fixed. It is flexible and created by individuals. People shape their identity based on social status, recognitions, and success. Pierre Bourdieu explained that a different form of capital influence a person's social position. In the Great Gatsby, Gatsby creates a new identity through entire Eliot society. In the modern creator economy, people build only identity that are performed and monetized. In both case, identity become a form of strategic effort aimed at visibility and success. The key concept of speculative identity. The idea of speculative self means that identity is not a natural or a fixed, but carefully created and future oriented. People shape themselves based on who they want to become, not just who they are. It is like investment in a future self, where individuals try to gain a success, recognitions, and a higher social position. Using Pierre Bourdieu's theory, this progress depends on different forms of capital, such as wealth, skill, and social connections. Depends on a different form, improve their position in society. In a Great Gatsby, Gatsby builds a new self through wealth and social display to entire Eliot society. In today's creator economy, people similarly build online personas to gain visibility and success.
theoretical framework of Bourdieu. Pierre Bourdieu explain how power operates through different form of capital. Power is not limited to wealth; it also includes social and cultural resources. This form of capital shapes status, recognitions, and opportunity. Society is structured by unequal destructions of economic resources like wealth and material assets, social network like connections and relationship, cultural knowledge like education, skill, and lifestyle. Individuals who use this form of position themselves socially. People accumulate and use capital strategically. Uh, Capital can be converted into status and recognition. Capital form of capital. So according to Pierre Bourdieu's, power in a society is not only about money but also about a different type of capital. Economic capitals means money and material sources. Social capitals means network and relationship that create opportunity. Cultural capitals include education, skill, and behavior that shows refinement. Symbolic capitals means prestige and recognitions from a society. This form of capitals are connected and can be converted into each other. Self-fashioning and eventual labors. Self-fashioning deliberate construction of identity. Identity is activity produced and emerged rather than naturally given. Individuals shape how they are produced within a social context. Venture labor. Identity as an investment. Identity building functions as a strategic investment for future success, involves planning, effort, and continuous performance. Identity as a strategic progress project, like a project continuously develop over time. Strategy used to gain recognitions and opportunity. Labor required sustained and effort of visibility. Gatsby as a self-fashioned identity. In The Great Gatsby, Gatsby is a strong example of a self-fashioned identity. He changed himself from James Guts into J. Gatsby, trying to leave behind his lower social background. He builds this new identity by using a different form of capital. He gains wealth, learns refined manners and speech, and host large parties, become visible and highly society. This help him appear as a part of the Eliot classes. Gatsby and forms of capital. In The Great Gatsby, Gatsby's identity is built through different form of capital. His wealth allows him to live luxurious life and host grand parties, which attract attentions and people from high society. He also tried to develop cultural capital by adopting refined manners and behavior, although this is not fully natural to him. Through these parties, he creates social connections, helping him entire Eliot's classes. Limitations of Gatsby's identity. In The Great Gatsby, Gatsby's impact to construct a new identity is not fully successful. Although he gains wealth, he lacks the authentic cultural background of old money families like Tom and Daisy. Because of this, he is never completely accepted into Eliot society. His manners and lifestyle may appear refined, but they do not carry the same legitimacy as those who are born into wealth. In the 21st century creator economy, in the 21st century, digital platforms such as Instagram, YouTube, and other have created a new environment where individuals can build and present their identities online. In this creator economy, people do not just express themselves; they create a personal brands. Their success depends on how visible and engaging they are to their audience. As a result of identity public as it constantly shared online, it is also performative because individuals carefully design their content and image. Creator economy and capital. In today's creator economy, capital operates in a more visible and measurable ways. Followers are not just a number of, they function as a kind of social currency, directly affecting creators' influence and opportunity. Cultural capital is no longer limits to education or test. Uh, it now includes digital skills such as understanding trends, editing content, and working with a platform algorithms. Economic capital is closely tied to identity, as a creator earn money by turning their personal images and content to marketable product. Venture labor in the digital age. In the digital age, identity is something we must constantly manage and present online. Unlike the past, there is no real off time. We are always visible on a platform like LinkedIn, Instagram, and others. Our visibility also depends on algorithms, not just people. So we must shape our content according to what these systems promote. Comparative analysis. When we compare Gatsby's world with the contemporary creator economy, we can see a clear similarity in both cases. Identity is not a natural but carefully constructed and performed. Gatsby's reinvestment himself to fit into Eliot society, just as a modern creators creates their online response. In both contexts, individuals use a different form of capital to improve their social position. Gatsby use wealth and social display, while the creator use followers, content, and digital visibility. To conclude, this presentation shows that identity is not something natural or fixed, but something shaped by different form of capital, as explained by Pierre Bourdieu. Both Gatsby and modern digital creators demonstrate how individuals construct their identity based on what society values. Gatsby performed wealth and status to entire Eliot society, while a creator performs identity to given visibility and success in the digital shapes. This is my learning outcomes, references. Thank you. Now for free from to ask questions.
So my question is, how is the creator economy similar to Gatsby's world?
In a both system based in a both system based on showing performance and visibility. Gatsby shows his identity through wealth and wealth and parties and lifestyles, and digital's creator shows their identity uh, through post and videos. In both case, success depends on how other see and organize them, and how will they use their resources.
My question is, How does Pierre Bourdieu's theory help analyze identity?
Bourdieu's theory says that power in society comes from different types of capitals like social connections, economy, educations, and respect. These things decide a person's place in society. So identity is not a fixed or a personal. It is shaped by what resource a person has and how they use them. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is CHAUHAN SIDDHARTH. My presentation topic is the will to power. Uh, sorry. The will to power and the false prophet. Nietzschean critical critic of the American dream in the Great Gatsby and the Wolf of Wall Street. Personal information and academic details. Table of contents. Introduction. The American dream is not fixed. It keeps changing over time. In the earlier 20th century, it based on hope, love, and idealism as seen the Great Gatsby. However, in the modern area, especially in the Wolf of Wall Street, it becomes materialistic and morally empathy. Uh, My research question is how does the transition from the romanticist thought of JSB to the nihilistic exploitation of Jordan Belfort signify the death of the Apollonian dream in American culture? My hypothesis Gatsby and Belfort both operate under the will to power, but will Gatsby use a false prophecy to make his corruption will with love? Belfort represents the Dionysian riot where the dream is stripped of all meaning except for the man who sold the world. Literary review. This slide highlight important critical ideas. The Gatsby as a false prophet who create a dream-like illusion around Daisy. The American dream itself is a screen as evolving from idealism and materialism. The master and solving morality, we can see how both Gatsby and Belfort try to rise above traditional ethic, myth, and symbolism, like the green light or the wolf, help structure meaning in a chaotic world. The Apollonian mask of Gatsby. Gatsby present the Apollonian side order, beauty, and illusion. His mention parties and lifestyle create a perfect image, but they hide eagle activities and inner empathiness. He believe he can repeat the past, which reflect a misunderstanding of ideas of internal recons. Despite his faults, Gatsby remains a tragic hero because of his of emotional depth. The Dionysian riot of Wall Street. Jordan Belfort Fort represent the choice, excess, and lack of control. His life is full of money, drugs, and power with no moral limits. He encouraged others to embody honesty and pursue success at any cost. Uh, the hide is corruption. His world becomes an unreal city where money is created without real value, leading to moral and cultural empathiness. Uh, Comparative analysis, order, and choice. Uh, Gatsby is a more of a victim destroyed by other and his own illusion. Will Belfort is a predator who exploit people. Gatsby still follows some emotional and moral values, especially his love for Daisy. In contrast, Belfort represents a complete absence of ethic, both character and in isolation, showing that extreme ambition without moral grounding leads to emptiness and failure. Uh, Conclusion: the American dream has shifted from idealism to materialism. SB green light symbolism of and inspiration, but Welford world it becomes the green dollar representing greed. Both character act as warning without ethical values. The pursuit of success becomes destructive. This is my references. Thank you. Any question?
How does the Great Gatsby represent modern anxiety?
The Great Gatsby modern anxiety exploited by the careless at making him a tragic victim. Alford other exposing himself as a manipulative predictor.
My question is, how are Gatsby and Belfort contrasted as victim and predator?
The victim and predictor, it despite success, moral empathiness, and unchecked capitalism without guilt or restraint. The narrative embraces choice and celebration and collapse of ethical boundaries. Thank you from my side.
Hello everyone. Myself, Siddhiba Gohil. This done, yeah. Options માં જ નથી. બરોબર જ છે અહીંયાથી તો.
स्क्रीन शेयर करेली क्या करेली
So, hello everyone, myself Siddhiba Gohil, and my today's presentation topic is the new woman and the traditional trap in the Great Gatsby. So, here is my academic details and presentation details. Table of content. So, I'll start with introduction. In 1920s, America marked a systematic shift in gender dynamics, punctuated by the rectification of the 19th Amendment and the emergence of the new woman, an archetype defined by financial independence and athletic powers, and social perversion. However, F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, this liberation is often revealed to a winner. This presentation, The New Woman and the Traditional Tap, investigates the tension between the modern signifiers adapted by the novel's female characters and the rigid patriarchal structure that continued to govern their lives. By analyzing Daisy Bunchan's strategic passivity, Jordan Baker's professional yet structurized independence, Martel Wilson's tragic attempt at social class mobility, we argued that these women exist as hybrids. They are trapped not by only economic and social dependence, but also by narrative gaze of Nick Carraway, whose patriarchal perspective systematically deconstructs their agency. So, who was the new woman? As defined by Martha Patterson, the new woman was a single, financial, independent, white, affluent, highly educated, politically and socially progressive, athletic and career-oriented, associated with suffragette movement. We can see that this Martha Patterson has also some traditional values, and we can thought in it as she has defined white as a new woman and some specific color. We can see color, skin color in mention in it. The new woman was a cultural icon of the 1920s, representing a shift from Victorian modernity to modern independence. There are some characteristics which other have stated in this new woman context, characterized as white, affluent, and highly educated. She was often single, financially independent, at least in theory, you can say that, and politically progressive. The politically foundation of this identity, yet social equality locked behind legal bars. In 1920s, women was allowed to vote at that time, and they had right. But we can see that there are some inequality that happened at that time, and bobbed hair, shorter hemlines, and the public consumption of alcohol and cigarette were visible as act of rebellious against Victorian femininity. This was the description between male and female at that time. Three characters which I have, I will talk about it as new woman's archetype, or they were traditional trap in it. They are trapped in it or not. Daisy Buchanan, the golden girl, affluent, charming, and socially prominent, aware of her objectification yet compliant, chooses Tom's wealth over Gatsby's love. We can see that how, because of money, she changes her love, feelings, or things like that. She is trapped in a loveless marriage, but she feels safe in it. And she has a dialogue, she says a dialogue about her daughter. I hope she's a fool. That's the best thing a girl can be in this world. We can see that she has at some context traditional thoughts of women in her mind. Another one is Jordan Baker, the new woman, the professional golfer. She is independent, self-sufficient, and she was in a field which was male dominated at that time, endogamous style, and still dismissed and patronized by men. Dishonesty in a woman is something you can never blame deeply. We can see that Nick Carraway have this statement for Jordan for dishonest because she was in a field which was not allowed at that time. Martin Wilson, working class, she was working class, uses sexuality for mobility, exploited by Tame as an object of desire, punished and brutally for being reaching beyond class. Patriarchy is violence against women. Tom broke her nose with his open hand. Physical dominance over female agency we can see in Martell Wilson's character. So let's study these three characters in detail. The first one is Daisy Buchanan, the new woman who chose to cage. She appeared as new woman, socially prominent, witty, independent, politically aware, and conscious of her own objection, but remains tragically trapped. She wanted her life shaped now by some force of love of money. She selects Tom's wealth over all things, like Gatsby's love. The hybrid argument. Scholars argue Daisy is neither purely traditional or fully modern, a hybrid. She materialism masks dissatisfaction with a patriarchal marriage. Her choice is shaped by survival, not surrender. There are some evidence which we can see that I hope she will be a fool. That statements of hers, we can see that she valued beauty over compliance. And Gatsby's just objectification of her too, that her voice is full of money. She is a prize, not his partner. We can see that. And feminist critics note Nick's narration from Daisy as shallow, yet her choices reflect structural constraints. After Gatsby dies, she retreats quickly, a woman who reached for modernity but remained for safety. Next one is Jordan Baker. She is the closest to a new woman. She plays golf in a male dominated sport. Financially she is dependent on her family, and we can see that Tom dismisses her. They ought to let her run around the country this way. We can see that she was rebellious. She didn't like rich society. She was not had that thought of traditional in it. And Jordan's bold independence read as conscience revolt against Victorian ideals. She takes Nick's hand, a gender reveal signaling female over society. She cheated to win her first golf tournament. Critics debate whether this shows moral failure or a woman doing what men or routinely do to succeed in rigid systems. Next one is Martell Wilson. She, unlike Daisy or Jordan, Martell represent the new woman of the working class, using sexuality and social transgression to seek upward mobility. She embodies aspiration in a system designed to deny it to women like her. She uses her affair with Tom as a vehicle for class assertion, mimics upper class mannerisms at their New York apartment. Her vitality and sexuality, coded as progressive and assertion, she was killed by Daisy's car, blamed and forgotten at that time. Her death serves the plot, but not her agency. Scholarly Lee reads her fate as patriarchy's punishment for daring to desire beyond her situation. So the central argument of the woman in the Great Gatsby are neither the traditional nor the new woman of the early 20th century, but rather a hybrid of both. Nick's dominant misogynist narrative and the male's character's direct speech constrain the woman from fully escaping the traditional gendered and roles of American society. So, Nick's narrative, we can see that as Fitzgerald himself admitted, the women are emotionally passive, and the novel is a man's book. Female character is characterized primarily in relation to men. Critics like Bizzle advocate a resistant reading, noticing that the narrator is not supposed to notice female characters carry more complexity than Nick's framework allows. Scholar note Fitzgerald does give women rhetorical spaces, but Nick's gaze reframes even those objects of male analysis. So, conclusion, we can see that Daisy, Jordan, and Martil each embody aspect of the new woman, but all remain trapped by patriarchal structure, constraining their agency, voice, and survival. The women are best understood at hybrid. They perform new woman traits while remaining bound to traditional gender system. Nick Carraway's narration act as patriarchal limiting how readers see female character. A feminist reading must actively resist this frame. Class interacts with gender, only human women approach the new woman ideal. Martin's lower class status made her most vulnerable to patriarchal voices. The Great Gatsby is ultimately a novel about the impossibility of the American dream, and for women, this impossibility is doubly enforced by gender. So here are my learning outcomes. These are my references, and thank you. Question are welcome.
You argue that Jordan Baker is the closest to a true new woman, yet she is still dismissed by Nick. If she is the most independent, why does she is ultimately fail to escape the traditional trap you mentioned?
Okay. So Jordan Baker is a independent and a working. She works. She is in sports field. We can see that she comes from a rich family, and we can say old money, as in it we have seen it, and she is dependent on her family funding so that she can live her life. And we can see that for her for her lifestyle and reputation of her as a sports person, she needs to be an elite class at that time. We can see that, and we can also see that Nick's statement that she is dishonest. We can see that in at that time, women needed man or a family to support themselves, and that is why, so at some point, Jordan was not a new woman, but she was at that time, but not now.
My question is, if Jordan Baker is the most independent new woman, why does she still fail to escape traditional contrast and face dismissal by Nick?
We can say, as I said, that Jordan Baker was independent. She worked at that time. And we can also see that she was also independent on her family. And as elite class people, they had reputation. And for that, and for her career, she was like independent. But at that some point, she was not independent. We can also say that Nick's statement and her point of view from which he sees Jordan, we cannot properly say anything, but we can see that Jordan was at that time new woman, but society at that time was not accepting these things at some points. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
This CH in Buchanan, it is pronounced as not ch but k sound, not Buchanan, but Buchanan. CH is normally pronounced in all three ways. Chair, CH is there. School, you will find it is pronounced as k sound. The same chorus, chemist, school, that is Buchanan. And also chef, CHEF, or machine. In that it is sound pronounced. So it is quite a different way pronounced.
Everyone, myself Vanita. Today I am going to talk about the illusion of wealth and how it connects to Gatsby's party to today's social media culture. In this presentation, I compare Gatsby's world with social media world. These are my academic details and presentation details. My research question is that how does illusion of wealth in the Great Gatsby compared to the representation of world in modern social media culture? And my hypothesis is that the illusion of wealth in both Gatsby's world and modern social media culture functions as a form of performance that creates false perceptions of success and happiness while concealing emotional emptiness and insecurity. Introduction. The idea of wealth is often closely linked with success, happiness, and social status in society. When we think about wealth, we usually imagine luxury, happiness, and success. And in the Great Gatsby, parties shows displayed wealth, and this thing happening also on social media platforms. People shows their wealth and luxury and their rich personality. So these platforms often create unrealistic standards of success and happiness, leading people to compare themselves with others and develop materialistic desires. So this presentation explores how the illusion of wealth operates both in Gatsby's world and in contemporary social media culture, highlighting that what appears to be success is often a performance rather than a reality. So, illusion of wealth in the Great Gatsby. In the Great Gatsby, Gatsby appears wealthy, successful, and socially admired. So, he owns a luxurious mansion and hosts lavish parties that attract large crowds. These parties create an image of glamour and high social status, suggesting he has achieved the American dream. So he gains wealth mainly to impress Daisy and win her love. So despite his riches, Gatsby is lonely and emotionally unfulfilled with no genuine relationships.
The novel shows that wealth is an illusion that hides emptiness and cannot guarantee to happiness. So Gatsby's parties as performance, the most element which shows illusion of wealth is that Gatsby's parties, in the Great Gatsby, Gatsby holds lavish and extravagant parties. This party serves as a public display of his immense wealth and social status, attracting large crowds from high society. So the parties create an illusion of popularity and success, making Gatsby appear important and admired in society. So Gatsby organized these events mainly to impress Daisy and draw her attention, turning wealth into a tool for personal desire. Therefore, parties act as performance of wealth, highlighting how money is used to create a false image of happiness and success. So let's talk about the reality behind the Gatsby's wealth. Gatsby appears successful and wealthy, but his inner life reveals deep loneliness and emotional emptiness. Gatsby's primary goal is to win back Daisy, believing that money can recreate their past. However, Gatsby lies in constant hope and illusion, which prevents him from accepting reality and moving forward. Now let's talk about illusion of wealth in social media. So social media platforms like Instagram, YouTube often present perfect, luxurious, and highly successful lifestyle. Users carefully select, edit, and filter their posts, creating idealized and curate versions of their lives rather than they showing reality. So the social media encourage self presentation, where individuals try to appear more successful, attractive, or wealthy than they actually are. So these platforms allow people to construct their identity, sometimes hiding their real life behind a digital image. So influencers frequently promote luxury products, travel, and lifestyle, creating a false image of constant happiness and success. So as a result, wealth on social media becomes performative and illusionary, so often hiding insecurity, pressure, and emotional struggles. So influencers and materialisms. Social media influencers on platforms like Instagram, YouTube often showcase luxurious lifestyle, branded products, and expensive experience. So their content creates an image of success, glamour, and financial freedom, which attracts a large audience. So influencers promote products and lifestyles in a way that makes wealth appear normal, desirable, and easily attainable. So this encourages materialistic values, where success is measured by possessions, appearance, and status. So social comparison. Social media platforms like YouTube and Instagram encourage users to constantly observe and compare their lives with others. So users are frequently exposed to posts showing luxury lifestyle, success, and happiness, which may not reflect reality. So such comparisons often result in feelings of inadequacy, low self-esteem, and dissatisfaction. As a result, social comparison reinforces the illusion of wealth, making people chase unrealistic standards of life. Here we can see Gatsby's world and social media cultures. Gatsby's world display lavish parties and luxury lifestyles, where social media culture
shows and display reels and curated content. And the purpose of Gatsby's world is to impress Daisy and gain status. And the purpose of social media to post anything is to gain likes and attention and validation. So reality versus appearance in Gatsby's world, wealth hides loneliness and emptiness. When on the other side, social media culture's reality is to post hide real struggle and reality. So overall meaning Gatsby's world is wealth has a illusion and performance, and the social media culture symbolize that wealth has a digital illusion and performance. So effects of wealth of illusion. The illusion of wealth creates unrealistic expectation, making people believe that success and happiness are only achieved through the money and luxury. So it leads to constant comparison with others, especially on platforms like Instagram, where ideal lifestyle are displayed. So the focus on appearance and material success lead to a loss of authenticity, where individuals hide their true selves. So overall, the illusion of wealth results in emotional dissatisfaction, showing that external success does not guarantee inner happiness. So I would like to conclude my presentation. The illusion of wealth in both the Great Gatsby and modern social media culture operates in similar ways, as both rely on performance and constructed identities to create false image of success. So the comparison between Gatsby's world and contemporary digital platforms clearly shows that this illusion exists across different time and periods. So this is from my side. These are references. If you have any question, feel free to ask. Thank you.
My question is, if illusion is everywhere, how can we avoid it?
If illusion is everywhere, we may be not avoid completely it. We should focus on reality and truth. We should being aware about that what we see is not always true or real. And another, we should avoid our comparison of unnecessary things, and we should focus on only on our natural personality and our goals rather than others lifestyle. Next. I want to answer. આવતે છે.
Yes, sir.
I will know you.
If illusion is everywhere, oh, it's really-
Yes, yes. Like this.
So, what message does this topic give to today's generation?
This topic give a message to today's generation that we should not judge anybody's life by what we see outside. We should don't we don't know the reality and truth behind the what we see, and we should focus more on our self worth and our personality, as we naturally as like we naturally and we should not compare ourself and our life with others life. So thank you, this is from my side.
Okay, so that was the last one. And in the last presentation, there were good citations being made by Vanita on from Taylor and Francis journal, and also honors was used for those things. So we see that when you refer to quality work, let me share the screen. Good articles we come to know on this. Various journals also we come to know that this all journals like Comparative American Studies, an international journal, or even this Behavior and Information Technology, Instagram Paths to Materialism in Young People, or this also Journal of Social Psychology, Developing the Social Media Self-Presentation Discrepancy Scale. So how these articles talk about social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, and if you cite from such articles, then people will consider it is a more serious study. It is not a shallow study. Otherwise, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram remains a very shallow study. But if you go to this article and cite, then it becomes qualitative work. People would think twice before questioning your observations if you have referred to qualitative journals. Now, here in this this article, there is an interesting observation. Instagram, and it is talking about social comparison and identification with influencers. So, how it bases its argument when you also make a research question and other things? What you have to keep in mind that how this article tries to review several things and comes to one important point. For example, materialism it is explaining, and then one model, Kessler's model for the development of materialism. And Kessler says that there are two mechanisms. One is feelings of insecurity, and second is exposure to materialistic model. When these two things happen, people start walking on that path of materialism. Otherwise, they might not go. That is his model. It is not completely overall model, but Kessler has proved that these two things plays a vital role. in driving people to become materialistic. And in that, how these two things are getting reflected on Instagram. So that is how it is connecting. And then people see the thing. Now, if you want to compare this with J. Gatsby, now J. Gatsby's case is a different case. It is not this. There also we have done psychological study. And there it was a different, there was grief, there was guilt, there was shame. There was a different reasons for J. Gatsby to make a show. It is not like this, this kind of thing. Now, if it is, it may be like that you might be coming from a poor background, but you want to show that you belong to a rich family. Then it is like J. Gatsby. If people do that on Instagram or on social media. But here it's a different thing. Here there is a different kind of feeling of insecurity. To a greater extent, we have come out, or we are coming out very quickly to see that we do not judge people from their family backgrounds. Or we try to see, like we are taught that we should, people might be coming from poor background, or the parents might be uneducated, but that should not be a shame for anybody. That discourse we have done. 100 years ago, that was not that discourse in America also. So J. Gatsby's formation is of a different kind. Now today, social media operates in a different way in showcasing other things. So how insecurity and materialistic models, which are exposed on all this platform, drives people to adopt to a materialistic life. And then they do. So there is a very clear-cut difference when we compare J. Gatsby with the help of this particular article. So that we have to keep in mind also. Apart from this, if we see other presentations, 2-3 things we have to keep in mind. By and large, things were quite good. I think in the presentation of, let me close this windows. This is Siddhiba Gohil. Again, it should come with a name. Last name should be there in that. So that is what you have to find when you search this Gesture article. There was name of Brian Still. So you should have cited Brian Still, comma Brian in your citations. This timeline, this is Nidhi Pandya. So you are showing 1865 as Gitanjali. Now that is not the correct date of Gitanjali. So that you have to correct. This auto-generated one has several kinds of errors also. So that you have to keep in mind that what is coming, is it proper or not? That question we have to ask to AI. We have to critically engage with AI when we do use of this. Now, I think if you have used Notebook, then they allow for edits also. They have added this feature. So maybe people can edit, or on the slides when you put, you can correct those things. But when facts and figures are coming, always doubt AI. Always doubt whenever facts and figures are there. So cross verify with other source that all the dates and other things are correct or not. Sanjay also had referred to good articles, and this one was a good article in this. When you talk about film studies, at that time referring to Rachel Dwyer is very much necessary. This name you can keep in mind. She is the first professor of Hindi cinema in the UK, United Kingdom. In that university, she is the first professor of Hindi cinema, and she has written a lot of things on Hindi cinema. So this name you can always refer, and any observation that you want to make on film studies, specifically Hindi cinema, then this name is worth referring. So Bollywood's India and how Rachel is trying to look at this. This also is a good journal which was cited there. This also is an interesting journal. So religion and film. So this way you get an idea that variety of journals are available, and maybe in future when you want to publish your papers, then You can identify specific journals where the papers can be sent for publications. Radhika also had citation problem. You are citing front matter, but there is nothing in the front matter worth citing. Normally the journal's front matter is only a title page and the information about the journal. So I don't know what you cited from the front matter of this. That is not getting reflected. So what we expect when you cite, for example, this is GRISHMA's slides. Now, lots of people are cited on each and every page. Now, ideally, what should be, if I tried this bohem, then that particular word should be reflected on this article. So if I open this, then I should get that word, but I'm not getting those words. So you have to, when you refer to an article, you have to pick up a quote from that article and you have to put it. If quote is very long, then some phrase, shabdona jumkha lewa pade, and ene double inverted comma ma lakhwa joye. And then page numbers you have to give. So if I want to cross verify that where on this article, the article is of 15 pages, so I can go directly on that particular page and see what you have cited. Now in this, I cannot find that. So if arguments,
if they are presented in that way that we are giving some identification or some argument and then we are typing it manually according to their view, then it will become a third-person narration from our side.
but you have to say that Beth A. Bohem said, argued, so and so in this. And then whichever words you are taking, put in double inverted comma. You have to quote that exactly as it is. Now, if the quote is very long, like if something that you are taking is coming in 3 pages, then pick up phrases. Phrase, sabdona jumkha, e kya sabdona upyog kari, ane vaat kare se jaruri hai. Otherwise, it seems you have given this article to AI, and AI has given you the summary. You have not read the article. How will you prove that you have read the article when you give phrases or quotations from the article, specific quotations? Then it is proven that you have read and useful things you have picked up. Like when we read the article, we found Kessler's model is talking about these 2 things. Now, these 2 things I can put in inverted comma. And Kessler's model says so and so kinds of thing that way. So I have read the article and I found these 2 things important to use in the comparative study of psychoanalytical study of J. Gatsby. So that 2 things are important that I will cite in this. If we don't get anything, any words like D, gay or bohem, Burns, if these words are not found, then it becomes difficult whether the article is actually cited or only parenthesis is mentioned. Only parenthesis. It seems that in most of the presentations, parenthesis is mentioned. Whether that is taken from that or not, that is doubtful. So how would I verify? Or if you have sent this paper for publications, then editors will have to verify that. If you have written in thesis, then the reviewer of the thesis will have to verify that. So that is why there is one system that we have to follow. Last name, comma, first name, then page number, publication date, edition, that all is required in that. That's why it is required. So anybody who wants to verify the things, they can easily reach to that particular thing. So what is the logic of doing this? That is what we have to understand first. So it doesn't remain a decorative piece that parenthesis is required. So let me put parenthesis. But why parenthesis is required? That is very important to keep in mind. You also cited this book in the citation. This books.google.com. So avoid citing that. From that you can reach to what is the original book or who is the original publisher. Google Books are not original publisher. They only share, they give only the stage platform to that. So you click and you come to Google Book here and you will find it is this book that you are citing, and you will get the information. Introduction by Rachel Bowlby, and all the information. Oxford University Press, which city, town, which year it is published. Biographical information also we get from this. So this is what is very important for a researcher to read and get the information. So in 1992, Frank Kermode has given a biographical preface. Then Rachel Bowlby has given this introduction. First published in 1992, reissued in 1998. That all information we get from here. So that page is important. This is what is we use for citation, that which work we have referred to. And then we get this thing. Whatever you have used from this book, then you can cite with page number also. That from this page, this particular thing is taken. You might have taken something from introduction or from preface. Then you have to say preface is written by Frank Kermode. So you'll cite with Frank Kermode. This introduction might be written by somebody else. So you have to go through the book and search all this material. This is how this work is, rigorous work. So you have to scroll the pages and see if it is available free of cost, you can get all the pages. Otherwise, somewhere in between, it will say no, that now you can't access this book. So we keep on seeing where the thing. Now, in such cases, reading a digital book becomes hazardous also. Physical book, you can quickly reach to the end of that. Whereas here now, some pages are omitted. So we can't get the name of the person who has written introduction. So we'll have to again refer another source. We'll have to find somewhere else. Again, we have to search and try to see where we can find the things also. So here in small letters, we find some pages are omitted from this book preview. So everything is not available. So this tells me that whatever I am reading is incomplete. So if I read this and make my argument, and if I don't know that what I have read is incomplete, then also I will be caught. That I think I read, but it was not the full book. Then there is directly the last page coming there. So they have not given the any other things about the thing. Even the introduction is incomplete in this book. So when you cite this and they ask, so if somebody may ask you that, where is this book? You say Google Books, then they will say open and show the book. But the book is not opening. So it means you have not read it. So this all things we learn while doing hands-on work we do. And when then we interact, then we find that, well, in this way, I can't claim that I have read the book. If I will claim, I will be caught. That no, I'm making a false claim that I read this book here. Okay, so these are a few things. And if you see other things, then by and large, other things were quite okay. Topics are well prepared. Infographics also were presented quite well by most of you, bearing one or two errors, which is coming in some textual content. Text content also is good, so slides are good. By and large, everybody is making good slides. Reference list also is being given alphabetical order. One or two minor errors, otherwise that also is appropriately done. So if we think of one step ahead of this, that once we have understood now that we have to cite from quality sources, journal articles or books instead of study material or Wikipedia or other things. And that is done. Now we try to integrate the source properly. How well we can integrate the sources. So when you are making your research question and hypothesis, then you are proving that research question and hypothesis with the help of somebody who said something. So you have to borrow their idea. That so and so person said this, and then you will bring with exact word. So if somebody is searching that word in that article, they can land at that particular page. If you give page number, it is good. If not, then at least it should be searchable term. So people land on that particular article and they can read a paragraph and come to know that what you are, how you are using that argument in your article. So that is integration. Proper integration of these sources is the next level that you have to see. After completing your PPT, you can do this by uploading this PPT on any of the generative AI platform and ask to review it. And you can ask the questions like, what's problem in this PPT? I am trying to prove this research question or this hypothesis. Is my slides conveying the right message or not? Or what should I do? Where is the gap? So ask critical question that what is problem? What is wrong with this? Be a strict reviewer of a quality journal and review my presentation. That what errors are being. That way, if you ask, then it will review and give you a report. And that you can fill in the gaps, that you can try to fill in. After preparing the entire slides, the last step you can take to critically evaluate the thing. You can also ask that I am trying to answer this research question, or this is my hypothesis. Is the flow of all the slides leading to an appropriate conclusion or not? The flow of the arguments made in this is leading, or there is somewhere a kind of a digression. Something is unnecessarily coming in between, which has nothing to do with hypothesis or research question, or you start just talking about some characters or some themes which has nothing to do with your hypothesis or your research question. So that part needs to be omitted. It will help you it will suggest you. This you can remove also. You can also ask that suggest edits for all these things. So it will give you how you can make those things also. So critically engaging with AI will help you a lot. On your own content, you ask critical questions and then try to reframe the things also. Finally, still the slides that we want, like we want banner to be prepared. Banner, but still you're not preparing banner. Seminar banners we have prepared. So how seminar banners are prepared? The speakers. That way you have to prepare one slide. So we told you to use Canva, but I don't see anybody is using Canva to prepare the banner of your presentation. So try that. Try using that template is widely like a kind of a template which is used a lot by different people now. This templates of Canva is normally becoming a standard template. Even Adobe Express also uses almost similar kind of template. So this will become somewhere a standard that how people will edit or do various things. So like there is PowerPoint has a template, Word file has several features, or whatever tools people use. They have common things. Email, for example, Yahoo or Gmail or whichever service you use, they have a common template. The same way for such editing also common template is emerging. So if you start working on that, you will be accustomed with how all these things are done. So we are expecting one slide you prepare on Canva and then download image file and put it on first slide. First slide of the banner. Seminar kind of banner, you are a resource person. And that way resource person photograph is given. So how we have prepared these banners. If you have forgotten, go through the websites or the photo album where we have put the banners also. So at that time we see in a different manner, but when we have to work on that, we see in a different manner. What things are required, where the title is written, where the time and date is written, what is this event that is written, and then the photograph of the speaker is given. So what are the basics which people think when they have to prepare a banner. So if you learn preparing this banners and other thing, it will be useful to us in future when we have to have several events. People are ready to understand what is to make a banner. So for so many events, we have to make banners with people's photograph, subject and other things. So try working on that. In subsequent 4 days also, if you'll work, give half an hour, then also you will master several things in preparing banners for the speakers. Okay, so with this, we end today's presentation session.